Hello, people. Happy Friday Eve. Got a nice show for you today. Um, we are going to do basically a live question the narrative podcast, and I'm going to be the guest. But until then, we're waiting on Ricardo's co-host, the Starman David Shane, and so yeah, we got some time to just talk about whatever. Maybe even if people got questions in the chat, let's hear them. But anyways, welcome to the show, Ricardo. Even it is kind of your show.
Yeah. Welcome to my own show on JT's page. What's up? No, it's good to be here, buddy. It's always good to talk to you.
Yeah, well, I think like last time we did this once before where it was just me and Ricardo, and we basically had what we probably did like 40 minutes, and then I was like, now I just turned my show over to Ricardo's show because then it was Ricardo's show,
Yeah.
and yeah, it'll probably be something like that. But yeah, there's lots to talk about. Even Ricardo and I were kind of teasing the idea. We've been talking with Jason Jack about a condensed, short little season video, and me and him have been like bouncing ideas off each other about. I kind of almost had like this Matrix idea or like a Matrix opener of like, just like in that movie, the lie is just like the whole thing is a lie,
Yeah.
and it's like we're born into that, and I think that that's a great concept. I was like, I know the Matrix. I've said many times, it's more of a Gnostic
Yeah.
message in the movie. But obviously, even Gnosticism, they have to try. I mean, Gnosticism tries, it does take the biblical story and say, well, that's true. But now,
hmm
obviously, we know it's true 100%. But always interesting to like see that kind of like the way the truth is kind of revealed, even through sneaky ways.
Yeah. What was that we were just talking about on the phone today where I said something and then I said, but yeah, the New Agers will probably try to take credit for that when that's God's stuff. What was
Oh,
it? Do
I
you
think we
remember?
were what were we talking about, the idea of, were we talking about frequencies or something like
The
that,
the
or
star forts and
oh
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And
We were talking about the idea that like through water, right?
yeah,
What?
God likes water.
We were saying is that it's
hmm
really interesting that if you understand like that Adam, the first man, was made from the dirt. He was made from the
That's
dust
right.
of the ground.
Yep.
And then so obviously what the earth is made out of, well, not just the earth. Well, the earth is just a dirt, but obviously the whole realm we live on, it's dirt and water basically. Right? What's interesting is like I think I don't know if it's like our bodies are made of like 70% or 80% water, but it's kind of interesting even like the way that the planet, even though we don't believe in that, is described as it's what, like 70 to 80% water and the rest of
Right.
it's dry land.
hmm
And I said it's kind of interesting that that's literally what we're made out of, and that's why it makes sense that the natural health remedies would work because it's literally what we're made out of.
Right. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
exactly what it
even the
was.
ocean, it's like we I was saying that just in sports, and not just sports, but I mean, I learned all this stuff through like sports sciences, that yeah, we need salt.
You're right.
So even like we can't really drink salt water, but we need salt in the liquid that's in our body, or we would literally die. It's really
That's it.
interesting.
That's the same thing even with farmers and cattle. They always have like a salt block out there for the cattle, the horses. If they don't have that, they'll basically die, like you said too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like that if you just drank fresh water all the time and you never put salt back in your body, you would literally die. I mean, we would get most of our salt probably from our food, but
Right.
yeah, but it does make sense that like the if God made us from this, then yeah, this does have all the means to heal us.
Right.
And I think that when you get into like the big pharma stuff, I'm sure lots of people already know this, that you can't patent things that are actually natural. So they don't want to patent. So they don't want people to use natural remedies because there's real no money in it.
No.
So what they do is they make a synthetic version of a natural cure, and who knows what else that does when they do that. And obviously, if nothing else, it costs way more because they do that.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a thing with and I know a lot of people get mad at me for saying this, but I really don't. like the concept of people going straight to the doctors if they have like a little sniffle or something like that, or of even a fever. They like the child has a fever and they like rush them to the doctor, and it's just like, well, like a fever is actually not a bad thing. That means your body's working and doing what it's supposed
Right.
to be doing. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
apparently, like those whatever those viruses or whatever, they can't survive in a certain temperature, and so your body is actually raising the temperature to kill off that whatever it is, which is
Yeah.
amazing, but people like, oh, we're trying to break the fever, trying to break the fever, and it's just like, well, just let your body do what it needs to do.
Yeah. The fever will break on its own if you
Right.
let it. Yeah. What was it? My wife is often says that. I mean, it's one thing if like your kid had 105 temperature. Well, that's not. Oh, we got David Shane joining us.
Hey, what's up?
How's it
What's
going?
up?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
We're doing great. We were just talking about natural remedies and things like that. But we were talking about how like that if you immediately take Tylenol when you got a fever, well, it's like you're not letting your body actually get hot like it's supposed to
Hmm.
in order to fight off the sickness.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
it's sometimes it's okay to have a fever. Maybe not 105, but if it's just like 100, 101, it's like it's probably if you can stand it, it's probably better to not do anything. Just let
Yeah.
your body do what it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Um, can you guys hear me and see me okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
How do,
because
how does the Starman sound, guys? How do we sound before we get fully into the presentation?
Yeah,
Because
we
I
don't
know,
want to be one louder, quieter than the other kind of thing. So just if you guys can let us know
and
what's
then I'm going to
going
invite
on.
Brian on so he can scream directly into the microphone.
That's so funny.
I had a little pop-up block is the reason I was asking it. It said that I need to close out my other Riverside browser.
Right, right. Yeah,
Um,
Riverside's funny. You could only have one open at the time, so
I
okay.
want, before we get into the question, the narrative portion of the podcast, I want to ask David Shane about the fact that he's now been banned. He's in the exclusive, or maybe not exclusive club. He's in the club now of those who've been banned, and I would say that sounds like you probably were doing something right. So tell us about that, David. I know that was quite a gut punch getting the
Oh,
the the,
oh
the
yeah.
perma ban.
It was huge gut punch. So woke up Sunday morning and opened the app and said I was permanently banned. I kept looking for a button to appeal it, and there wasn't one. So that's that. Didn't give
Had
me an
you ever
appeal
had you ever
option.
had you ever been suspended before?
No, never been suspended. Now here's the funny thing. For the last couple of months, they've been removing my comments left and right. And granted, none of them had any cuss words, no profanity, no insults. Just, me voicing my opinion in the comments, and they were getting removed. And I've been getting so many strikes that they put my account under a ban warning.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been operating under a ban warning for like 2 straight weeks. And then Sunday morning, I wake up and I'm permanently banned. No reason why, other than it said that my content was against their community guidelines. So there was
Whatever
no,
that mean. Whatever that means.
whatever that means. So I guess it's against their guidelines to voice your opinion honestly in the comment section.
Yeah, and I guess that's a reason why a lot of people don't trust people who've never been banned because the people that I know have been banned, it's like, I mean, comparing them to other people who haven't, it's TikTok standard, and I think that's the whole reason that they do it the way they do it is because they just want to get rid of certain people. I think sometimes they want to
Yeah.
ban. I think for a lot of people they ban them just because they'll owe them money, and then they'll
yeah.
just say
Did
we
they
don't
owe
have.
you any money?
Yeah, they owed me it wasn't much, but they owed me a little bit from that last live stream I did on the blood moon. I had gotten some some gifts during that live. Probably not a lot, like $20 worth.
Mhm.
Um but I had been suspended from the rewards program for months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. That was 3 times. I got suspended from it 3 times. Um And every time I got it back, I didn't get to keep it any longer than a week. They would hit me with a bunch of strikes for comments and then suspend me for a month. I'd get it back, get suspended for a month. And then, like I said, that last time they put me under a ban warning for too many strikes. And then just all of a sudden, bam, I was permanently banned.
How much were you? How much did you get to as far as followers till they banned you?
217,000.
Yeah.
Oh, 217 is where I got to. That's a lucky
number.
That's the lucky number. They said nope,
Dang.
not more than 217.
Wow.
Yeah, can't reach that 220 marker.
See, and mine, once I got to like 180, I just got completely like shadow banned. Like I have 180,000 on my TikTok, and I'll get like seriously like 100 views if I post something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, your account is worse shadow banned than any account I've ever seen. It's bad.
Yeah, it's almost better to just start all over, you know?
Yeah, but if you start over from the same device or same IP address, that account will be shadow banned too.
Yeah, that's what JT was saying. That's what you were telling me, JT.
I've noticed this, and I would say that so after I got banned, I had a backup account, and I want to say that I had close to 10,000 followers on that backup account because I'd gotten in trouble a couple times. So I was trying to make sure that I still had access. And so I started using that account, and when I first started using that one, I had a couple really good videos that kind of were getting me like kind of back in the game. But then it does seem like they kind of are like, we're not going to let you do too much here.
Right.
I mean, I'm up to like almost 87,000, but at the same time, I don't post like I used to. Like back when I got up to 217, I was probably posting 5 days a week at least.
Yeah.
You know, probably mostly posting every day.
See, and with me, when I started gaining a lot of traction, I was posting 3 times a day.
Oh wow!
I think lots of us did. I mean,
Yeah.
It wasn't unusual for me to post more than one video in a day.
Yeah, 3 times a day, and there was certain amount of slots. It's like you hit the 11 o'clock slot, you hit like the 3 o'clock slot, and then you hit like a 7 o'clock slot or something.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I wasn't even posting that much, on that account recently. I've been lucky if I could, post 3 videos a month, maybe one a week is all I've been posting at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to just ban me like that out of nowhere, it's crazy.
It is a gut punch, but I've been telling both y'all, I said, TikTok sucks. You guys should, I mean, obviously Ricardo is definitely putting his emphasis on YouTube, which I tried to encourage you to do the same, David. So I know that this will be the kind of push you need. And if you guys do have if you guys are on Instagram, follow David Shane on Instagram, because I said you should probably do that, and you should do more of this, because if you want anybody to show you some biblical cosmology, and David Shane has got he's probably got the kind of equipment that you could only see in like one of these big old places, like on Mount Graham or something. He's got all the telescopes, he's got all the cameras. So he's got way more equipment and knowledge than any of us do. And he does take some of the best star, planet, sun, moon footage I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
100%.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Of course, man. That's what I was saying. Like, I know that for us, it's like that I went to Shane's house almost not quite a year ago, but I went up there, and when he showed me all the stuff he had, I was like, bro, what? And like, here's his other telescope. And I got a glimpse of how difficult it is, because we were definitely going to try to look at some, Saturn and all the things. And it was like the first night, it was kind of rainy, and it was no visibility. Then we got lucked out the second night, it was like it cleared up. And then David's like, okay, well, Saturn's supposed to come out around midnight. And we're like, okay, we're hanging out, we'll watch it. And then it's like, well, but it's not going to really get past like the tree line until like 2 a.m. And right as it was about to do that, like this mist came over. There's some kind of it was And then
The
it was like,
sky
well,
fog.
yeah, sky fog. And then we're like, well, I guess that's not going to work out. So I do appreciate how much time and effort it does to when you get that kind of planetary alignment where you could see Jupiter or Mars in the sky, and you can't like, but you can't really plan on when it is. It's like it is, and so you got to have a little bit of luck on your side, and you got to have a lot of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of both because, and it's funny. It's like nights when I don't get my telescope out, don't even plan to, or just don't feel like it. The sky will be, so clear and just beautiful, calm winds. And then the nights I feel like doing it and I want to get it out, it's either windy or they start, spraying the. I don't think I can say that on here if you're live on YouTube, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They start spraying the stuff across the sky, and then that will spread out into like this weird either fog or a mist or just like these weird thin clouds. And of course you can't do anything in that. And sometimes I was able to wait it out and like 30 minutes or an hour would pass, I'd get some wind and it would kind of, clear up. But yeah, it takes a lot of patience. You got to be dedicated. And I remember that night you were there, and you remember how heavy that telescope is, right?
Oh yeah, we had David's got a big old driveway, big long driveway. Yeah, we had just to haul the equipment out to where would be the spot to get the shot. I mean, that's the thing. Is like we had to do all that, and then we waited for a long time. We're like, oh yeah, just a little bit longer, just a little bit. It's 2 a.m. now, and here
Yeah.
comes the mist, and we're like, I guess it's not. The mist is not going anywhere, not anytime soon. And yeah, and then of course then you have to take all the stuff back to the garage. But yeah, I mean, I guess it makes it sweeter when you do get the shot. I guess
Yeah.
knowing that it's something earned, right?
Oh yeah, you definitely earned those good shots. You definitely earn it. That was so disappointing though because you and your wife were wanting to see Saturn so bad, and the weather, was kind of raining that first night, and then the second night we stayed up all that time, waited for Saturn to rise above the tree line just for that fog to come and ruin it. And we'd gotten set up. Went through the alignment process, got polar aligned, did my 2-star alignment, and as soon as we slewed the telescope to Saturn, you remember put the dot on
Yeah,
Saturn.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Out of nowhere comes that fog, and we were done. I mean, we could have waited an hour, but I don't think it would have cleared up.
Yeah, I think that I think 2 a.m. was late enough. It was
Yeah.
kind of just like
Give up.
just was not meant to be. It's not meant to be.
No.
But anyways, do you guys want to talk about anything else before we get started? You guys got anything else on your mind? If anything quick. Oh, one thing I want to mention real quick, as I mentioned to Ricardo, I was reading through the book of Joshua. And you guys know that I'm not a KJV only, but I am reading through the New King James version. And I got to Joshua 10, which obviously lots of people who believe in biblical cosmology, we quote that often about when Joshua asked the Lord to stop the sun and the moon. So that we talk about that a lot. But what I found interesting is that during that chapter, it's about when the 5 Amorite kings go to try to fight against the Gibeonites. And so the Gibeonites are the real shady characters who put on all the dusty clothes and came with like the dry bread and fake that they went on some long sojourn to get there. But they tricked the Israelites into agreeing to protect them or to not get rid of them. So they felt like they needed to protect them. And so 5 Amorite kings, which I believe are giants, they are all assembled to go take out the Gibeonites. So Joshua and the Israelites, obviously with the Lord, I think they said the Lord killed more of them with giant hail than they did by slaying with the sword. But what I found really interesting in the New King James and also the KJV, as well as the Geneva Bible, I guess I'll just pull this verse up because I highlighted it today. I found this really interesting because it did not say this in...
Is it in Numbers?
No, this is Joshua chapter 10.
Joshua.
And so this is Joshua 10, verse 6. And it said, and then the Gibeon and then the men of Gibeon sent Joshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, do not forsake us, do not forsake your servants. Come up with us quickly. Save us, help us. For all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have gathered together against us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's interesting about that is this is like the southern part of Israel, like where Judah is. Like one of the kings is from Jerusalem. Well, there's no real mountains in that part of Israel. There's really only one mountain in all of Israel. It's Mount Hermon. That's like the only true mountain in that land. So I think it's interesting that like if you read the NLT, you read the ESV, and you read what else did I read recently?
ESV.
Yeah, what I said, ESV, NLT, and I don't know, I'm blanking here. Well, anyways, yeah, ESV, NLT, and then I also read. Man, I'm like completely bricking them.
NIV?
No, it's not. Maybe NIV. Well, it doesn't matter which other. It's every new translation. It says hills and not mountains.
Yeah.
But the oldest translations, like the KJV and the Geneva, both say mountains. And I wonder if it has something to do with. Do you think it was translated because that's problematic? Because people say, but there's no mountains in that part of the land. So they said they must have meant hills.
Even Mount Zion, what they say is not a mountain. They even say that it is a hill. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They do say that it's a hill, Mount Zion.
Whose phone is going off?
That's Shane.
I put it on silent just now. Sorry about that.
I feel like it's ringing the mic. Yeah, but I think that's interesting. It's like, and I said to Ricardo today, I thought, what if, because a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's proof that the land there is not the real land. But I was saying, but what if during the day of the Lord, mountains literally got leveled? That looked like, they were once real mountains, and now they just look like foothills because, of all the judgments.
I could see that, but just my personal opinion is that it's not that land there. The 1948 land it's just not. I do see where you're coming from, but I don't see that being the land, even if it was leveled, which obviously something happened there. It's a complete desert, So there was some sort of judgment over there, but I truly think that it's probably somewhere where we can't see right now. That's what I think.
It would have to have been still some kind of significant place, though, because there is, obviously there's a lot of old stuff there.
Yeah.
I guess the truth is that there could have been some really old stuff in America that's just no longer, just was completely destroyed. That's why I always say about the stuff out west, that stuff is just wrecked beyond recognition now. So that could be possibly it. But it's, there's so much history in that part of the world, and it's kind of hard to say that if Paul was going on these sea voyages to go around that region, he's going to places on a map that we can kind of see, like, so where are those places if it's literally around the world, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, both, I feel like, both what you and Ricardo said are pretty valid points. It does say that, there's a verse in Revelation that says every mountain and island was moved from its place.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing though. We don't know what this place looked like 2,000 years ago.
1,000 years
ago.
Or
1,000 years ago, like 1,300 years ago.
Yeah, even 1,000 years ago. Like, we don't know, So it's hard to say what this realm looked like back then. It really is. But lately, I don't know if you guys have seen those videos on TikTok, but there's a guy that shows at the same descriptive geographical locations right here in America that are talked about in the Bible, like the Euphrates River, the Amazon, the four rivers that split off of Euphrates. It's just a lot of stuff like corn. Like we know that Jesus and the disciples picked corn, which is not native to Israel. Those rams that are talked about in the Old Testament, they're not native to Israel. The palm trees, the sycamore trees. Um, and if you compare, which like I said, it could look different back then, but take today's Israel, the 1948 Israel, it's mostly desert, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, the Bible describes it as a place flowing with milk and honey, like a place of abundance.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Oh,
that,
yeah, for sure.
you know what I mean? To me, and like I said, it may have been the opposite back then, but to me, it sounds more like it's describing America because this truly is a land of abundance. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Flowing with milk and honey, literally.
Well, Vitali is
But
the one who said he thought that maybe it was California.
Well,
oh yeah,
remember I sent you that thing, Shane? It was like America or something that it meant.
Oh,
It
yeah,
actually
yeah.
it
Amaru Ka.
yeah, and that
yeah,
actually I sent it to Shane because he's on that right there, and it actually means milk and honey.
yeah.
Amaru Ka means that?
It was I'll look it up right now.
Well, Amaru was the plumed serpent. That was the god. That was the god in South America, and he had variations of his name, either
Hmm,
Amaru or Amaru Ka. Yeah, we talked about
interesting.
that. Yeah, with Jason Jack. I did that old video about that. Manly P. Hall said that America literally translates into the land of the plumed serpent.
the land of the plumed serpent.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
haven't heard that one. That's interesting.
Makes
While
sense.
yeah, yeah. While you're looking that up, Ricardo, one other thing I wanted to mention was uh, what we call Utah. This guy was saying that's Judah.
Yeah, Yuda.
Yeah, Judah. And like apparently, down south, like Mexico, New Mexico,
Hmm.
that was like Egypt, and it went all the way up to the Grand Canyon. And we're not even allowed to explore 90% of the Grand Canyon because they have found so many Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. So now a lot of it's completely off limits. And I find that to be very suspicious. You know what I mean? But
Oh
you know,
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. We actually, it's funny. I just released that video because I was just desperate for content on on Instagram. So I just said I'll just post a video that's a year and a half old, and that's exactly the same thing. That it was the conversation I had with Aaron Tune Thy Heart,
yeah,
and we were just saying it makes no sense that if you have this place and it's like so only, I think they said what was it? It's like less than 10% of the Grand Canyon is accessible to us. It's probably even less than that. And so
Wow.
yeah,
why not? And so they could say, oh well, it's really dangerous, but people die in national parks every day. So why would they really care more about that place than any other place? Even I think that there was this guy, I want to say last year, he got in trouble because he was taking like tours. Like obviously he was not supposed to, but he was taking boat tours through, I guess, the Colorado River that runs through the bottom of it. And yeah,
uh,
he eventually he got in trouble. But I mean, like that doesn't seem all that dangerous.
Right.
It's just they
no,
don't want people to be in there. I mean, I think the natives actually had mythologies about how they came out of certain parts of it. Yeah, they all have weird, super weird mythologies about coming from inside the earth with Spider Grandma and all that stuff.
So
yeah.
JT, can you see this? Can you read that?
Um,
Oh
Or is it
wow,
not
oh
focused?
yeah, yeah. Does this say land of wheat? Land of the
Uh
wheat or the
land
land,
wheat?
of milk and honey,
yeah,
and
I
land of
did
milk.
see that. Yeah.
But I'll read it to you, but there's variants of that too. So I just typed in what is the meaning of the word America, and it's Amerk or Amuruk, and it means land in the West. And then in quotations, it says the land of milk and honey. And then variants are Amorica, and then America with two R's, Amuru, and then Amaru. So there's a lot of variants of all of that, but I mean It popped up the land of milk and honey, even on all those variants of words, which is kind of crazy.
Very,
Everybody
Just
very
knows that it was
interesting.
just
named
some
after
just something to think about.
Amerigo.
Amerigo Vespucci.
Everybody knows it was named after.
Vespucci.
Maybe everybody was known it was
Yeah.
named after just some guy's first name.
Yeah.
That
No.
makes way more sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, way more sense. Oh yeah, the Gopher Wood. That's what I forgot a minute
Yeah.
ago. It's the only place on this earth that you can find gopher wood. Apparently, is in Florida.
And parts of Georgia too, I believe.
Yeah, in parts of Georgia, but right here, as far as the countries, from what I understand, only in America can you find gopher wood.
I think that the Mormons said that the Garden of Eden was in Missouri, didn't they?
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah, I think. And I did see somebody sent me an article of this guy who was saying that the Garden of Eden was in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. That's the guy I'm talking about. He believes that he's found all four of those rivers that flowed from it and the gopher wood. I mean, he's got a lot of very good points. I mean, he's a real old man. He's sitting in his chair somewhere down there in Florida, and I think he was saying he was sitting in the exact place or roundabout area where the ark had to be built because there was so much gopher wood around there, and some about the four rivers. It's been a while since I've seen it, but dude, it was pretty compelling stuff when I saw it.
So
See,
Adam was the original Florida man. When you always see news articles about Florida man doing something crazy, that was Adam. Adam and Eve.
No, I kind of think that that's not somewhere where we can access right now. I think it's still here, but we're just exiled.
Yeah, I think that the Garden of Eden, if you actually look into some of the other verses about it, they're not in Genesis. It's on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes sense to the other mythologies about mountains having, heavenly properties, and because it's where heaven meets earth.
Right.
The mountain. So like the mountain of God. I think even that's what it's saying in Ezekiel 28 when it's talking about the fallen cherubs, talking about the devil. And he was on the mountain of God in the garden and all that stuff. It was like, I think that's where it makes sense to me. It's someplace else. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not in Florida. I don't think so. And even if
either.
it was, I do think that like the main thing I would say is like Shane said, so many drastic changes have taken place since the flood, and obviously what happened about 1,000 years ago. Like what did this place used to look like versus what it looks like now? I mean, a whole different ball game, I think.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing and then we could get started if you want to, Shane. But just the whole mountain concept, because I know that Vitali was saying this too, that maybe New Jerusalem can be a pyramid as well. I've heard that. And, it's like the mountain of God, maybe. And it was, and I just came to this realization, or just like entertaining this thought, because I was looking through my son's little diary, or it was like a journal that my wife had them do. And so they had, my wife would write something and then I have to draw a picture. But he drew two mountains, but they just looked like triangles. And I'm like, well, that's how my son, when he was 5 years old, drew a mountain. It was a triangle. And I just thought about that, like that whole concept of the eye on top of the triangle, like that pyramid structure. What if that's like the mountain of God? And then who else but the Lord is the one who sees all, the all-seeing eye. That's no one else but him. He's the one that sees everything. But I just thought that was interesting, that it is a triangle. And then when my son, like I said, 5 years old, drew triangles, but those were his mountains.
Yeah, from the mouth of babes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Shane, you want to just go ahead and just do the intro, and you could kind of lead the charge, because I know that you wanted to talk about a lot of this stuff that you've been looking into, and then JT and I will just kind of just piggyback off some of the stuff that you've been learning. And then,
real quick, if you guys are in the chat and we got a good crowd here for you guys today for the live show, 729 people right here. So what we're doing today is that uh, Ricardo and David Shane over here are recording their episode of Question the Narrative, and so they let me host it live. So I'm turning the show over to both these guys, and yeah, I am now just one of the panel or one of the interviewers or interviewees. So you
Right.
guys, and if you guys are in the chat, you guys make sure you guys follow David Shane and Ricardo over here. So if you guys see that they're tagged in this video, give them a follow. And their podcast is on all the audio podcasts.
Right.
Yeah.
Question the
Apple,
narrative.
Spotify, the big ones. So check them out over there.
Yep. Okay, so guys, welcome to another episode of Question the Narrative. We've got our good friend with us, JT, here today, and we did several episodes with him previously. It's always a blast to have JT on, and my trusty co-host Ricardo over here. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, my brother? It's good to see you.
Doing good. We got some interesting stuff for you guys this week. This is information that I've just recently came across. It seems like some of it is very accurate. Like I said, it's new information, and you can consider it conspiratorial if you want. It's about the Tartarians, the Tartarian Empire, and I just found it really, really fascinating, and kind of wanted to share it with you guys.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
Yeah, Ricardo, did you get a chance to read that leak? Read the rest of it?
I got through like half of it. I didn't get through all of
Okay.
it. Because
Okay.
you know what's funny is I started going when I was reading that article, I started going down like these complete other rabbit holes. That's why I started sending you those books and stuff because it was referencing like these other things. And I'm like, well, what's this? And so I just got completely off track and I'm like reading this book that's saying, and I sent it to you too, JT, about 1,000 years of Tartarian Empire or something like that. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. 1,000 years. It's
Yeah, every time 1,000 years is mentioned, it's like eyebrow raise.
yeah, it's like bing. What's
yeah,
up?
what what was that? 1,000 years?
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it is super interesting. So one of the things that caught my attention, let me just get a second to pull this article back up here.
Yeah. Yeah, and we should leave. Would you want to leave a link so other people could check it out too in the
Yeah.
details of the show? Okay, yeah, because guys, it has like tons of old maps and all kinds of cool stuff that you guys can look into and just consider. Like we're just speculating here that we're not saying this is or isn't for sure. It's just interesting information that you just put in the back of your mind and you can save it for later if you ever need it.
What's the book called?
Okay. It's an article that someone has put together that is like us, that is, gone way down the rabbit hole researching Tartaria, the Millennial reign, the Little Season, all that stuff. So he's put a bunch of clips from old history books on this article. These are all old books I had never even heard of.
JT, I just sent it to you if you want to look on your phone and you can kind of follow along.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of this information is from the Apocrypha, from like 4 Esdras, chapter 845. And let's see, another one from An Accurate Description of the New World, written in 1670, Relations of the Most Famous Kingdoms, 1611.
That's an interesting year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's the KJV, right?
Yeah.
The King James, yeah. Another one from Giles Fletcher the Elder, 1584. Library of Biblical Literature, 1850. I mean, this guy has did a ton of research, and it had to have taken him a very long time to make this website here.
Yeah, it's very, very detailed. Even on all these maps, he has some overlays. He has arrows pointing here. He has underlying text, everything. He's done a lot of research, definitely.
Yeah. So I think the way I kind of interpret what this guy's saying, so you got to kind of overlook the
Okay,
title.
so just so everyone knows, what is he saying? Just so we can have that as our context. This sounds crazy, guys, but this
It
is hi-
sounds
this is what he's saying. This is his speculation.
yeah. Okay, so this guy's speculation is he was kind of speculating on whether or not, and it's gonna sound crazy, but you gotta read through this. Okay, so the title is the Inuit. Am I pronouncing that right? The Inuit,
Inuit.
Inuit, the
Yeah.
Inuit, Thule, and Tartarians. Was Genghis Khan the second coming of Christ? Now that sounds crazy. I know that's I almost didn't read the article because of that title.
Yeah, that
But
does sound a little crazy.
yeah, it does. But we know how they like to twist up, morph, twist our history. You know what I mean? Um, who's to say that some of the here's my theory on it, and maybe this is this guy's thinking as well. Um, what if all of these conquests, like if the millennial reign did already happen, he already reigned for 1,000 years. There was obviously a bunch of books documenting Jesus's conquest because it said he ruled with a rod of iron, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So what if some of the awesome and great things Jesus did while he was reigning got twisted and renamed? Like, what if it was really Jesus Christ doing these things and they renamed it Genghis Khan? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's one
Yeah,
theory.
yeah,
And
possibly.
you can tell they've altered the dates of these history books because they've turned J's into ones and ones into and I's into ones. I wish I could pull up those screenshots I sent you, Ricardo.
Could you share the screen, JT, if we send it to your email?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could do that. Well, the whole thing about like the chronology. I can't remember if you were on the podcast the one day I was reading some of that I found an article because I was going back through some of the old like Gunnar Heinz and stuff. I was looking back down that rabbit hole, and I found this article that was talking about Fomenko and Heinzen. And yeah, the thing is, it's like that. Basically, the Western Europeans gave everyone a chronology. So it was like that. India and China had this ancient history, but they didn't have chronology until the British gave it to them. So it wasn't. I want to say that they didn't give the. I want to say the Chinese a chronology until maybe like the 17th century, 18th century, and India did not get a chronology until the 19th century.
Oh
So,
Mm,
wow.
so when it comes down to it, it's like the stories, like Heinzen was saying, the stories are true, or could be true. He's not throwing out the stories. He believes that there's enough evidence that like that there's whatever history is, those things happened, and obviously we could, depending on who wrote it, they might be telling a biased account of it, but there's these stories that are told over and over again. Those stories are true. What's not true is the way that they're chronicled in the orders they're chronicled in. So yeah,
Right.
like the stuff here, that's what I think this should just almost be like just a catch-all for everything on this channel. Unless it's really recent, just throw the dates out. Like we're just talking here. We're like we'll
Yeah.
because we can maybe eventually say if it fits with something the Bible says, we'll try to put it closer in our minds, at least to the times of Jesus and the times that we believe he came back.
right.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey,
You
check your
know,
email.
Okay.
while you're looking at that, I'm going to read one of the. I'm kind of going to scroll down here halfway because a lot of this it's about Tartarian Christianity. Whoever heard of that? Not me. I had never heard of Tartarian Christianity till I read this article. But apparently, the Tartarians are a big reason why Christianity spread worldwide
There you
because
go.
it's there you go. Because it says in this article that with basically with the help of Genghis Khan or because of Genghis Khan, Christianity spread across the earth like a flood. across the entire world like a flood.
Mhm.
And weren't we we weren't taught a lot about Genghis in school, but what little bit we were taught, wasn't he demonized? Weren't we taught like he was this evil emperor, evil ruler,
Well,
I
he
right?
was
think
like
he's also
he was. We were taught that probably like he was a conqueror.
right.
You
Yeah,
know, I mean, there's one. I always heard that. I want to say that they say that 10% of either Asia, I think, or the world is like has some of it in his DNA. Is what they've said. You ever heard that?
yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I've heard.
probably like everybody's related to Solomon and King Genghis Khan because Solomon had 1,000 wives and concubines, and we don't know how many Genghis had. But
Yeah,
so
and
yeah,
it's
Jason Jack actually mentioned that Genghis Khan means universal king
Oh wait, I
or
was
universal
wow.
stop,
or
stop.
sorry.
You, yes, that's about what I was
Spoilers.
going to get. Spoiler, yeah.
Spoilers.
Since you already
Spoiler.
brought it up, let me.
But no, we can get back to it. Just let's go in order. I got it pulled up so you guys can just tell me how to scroll.
Okay. Well, you already mentioned it, so I really want to get this part out of the way, so
Okay. Well,
people
that's a good way
realize
because it is so crazy to say that
it's
Genghis
Yeah.
Khan
crazy.
was actually Jesus. So let's
Okay.
go with the strongest evidence first.
Right.
Then we'll
Yeah.
double back.
Okay. Scroll down. I'll tell you when to stop. You'll
Scroll
actually
down.
see. Yeah. It's when it starts talking about the definitions and meanings
Con.
of Genghis Khan.
Yeah, yeah. Keep going, keep going, keep
What
going.
about Khan from Star Trek? Ricardo Montalban. You remember Kirk yelled Khan? Or
No,
you guys don't get that reference?
No, I
sorry.
didn't. I didn't really get into Star Trek that
Oh,
well.
come on, guys. It's like a
It's after that,
Right.
right there,
Okay.
right there.
okay.
Just a little bit more kind of center. Whoa, whoa. Back down a little. Perfect. Right there. That's fine. Okay. So apparently, the name Genghis Khan literally means King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Where have we heard that from? Revelation.
Hmm.
And what else does Revelation tell us? That in the millennial kingdom, Jesus receives his new name. So I've got two wild theories to throw at this. No, first of all, that could possibly be his new name, Genghis Khan. It literally means King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and he was probably the greatest conqueror that ever lived. And you could say that he ruled with a rod of iron. This article says that because of him, Christianity spread across the earth like a flood. This was huge. I mean, huge. So that's one theory, right? The other theory is that whoever wrote these stories changed the name
Hmm.
for whatever reason, probably trying to cover up and hide the millennial reign. That's another theory, but I just feel like that's super interesting. Um, and
Yeah.
Jesus.
So Genghis, if you see there too, that it's Jesus was born in Nazareth, Genghis was born in Azareth. That's like
Nazareth.
that's
Come
kind of
Hmm.
on.
weird.
Hmm.
Now you see, yeah. Um, Jesus was called the Son of God. Genghis was
Well,
called the
Jesus was
Son of
actually
God.
not born in Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem.
He was from Nazareth, though.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Um,
that they probably should have said born.
yeah, they shouldn't have said born. That's yeah. So body location for Jesus, non-existent, obviously because he ascended into heaven. Body location for Genghis, non-existent. To this day, nobody knows where his tomb or his body was laid, or even if we don't have no evidence of his death. That's interesting. Um, and the fact that the Tartarians played such a huge role in Christianity, I never knew that before. Okay, so now I want to kind of go back up.
You want to go back up?
Yep. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and that's interesting
Well,
too, because in this article, I don't know if anyone had caught it at the top, but it's also saying that they believe that it's
yeah, right there.
possible that the lost 10 tribes of Israel was actually in Tartaria or something. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing that really caught my attention with this article. See, today we have no idea who the 12 tribes of Israel even are or where they are. Well, according to this, 10 of those tribes were situated right there in Tartaria, right? And two of the tribes rejected Jesus as their Messiah. They denied that he was the Son of God. So basically, those two tribes kind of got cut off, and they went their own way. That was the tribe of Benjamin, and what was the other one?
Was it Dan?
Yeah, Dan is obviously was
Dan.
like the first one to go.
Yeah, so Dan and Benjamin. So that's
I
more
thought I
information I
thought
never
Benjamin
knew.
hung on longer, right? Because obviously Benjamin is like was part of the is with Judah for a while.
I don't.
Benjamin
Yeah,
was bad. Benjamin, they were bad in the book of Judges, but then they kind of like they saved them.
yeah,
Because even what Paul was a Benjaminite.
right. Okay, so here I'm gonna read this little article to them in case they can't see it. Sometime after the migration of the Tartars to this place, and about the year of our Lord, where we're the year of our Lord, that makes me believe that this was going on during the millennial reign.
Dude, that's
Why?
I 62. That's like 62 years in.
Well, okay, them pictures I sent, if you zoom in on the date right there, that first letter, look at the space between it and the next one. That almost looks like an I and a 162, or it
Hmm.
could be like Ricardo, it could be II 62, but I'm thinking it was the year of Isis 162, possibly, because it
I
even says the
see
year of our Lord.
see the thing with me is the dates are meaningless. I think that
Yeah,
the dates don't hardly mean anything because if you actually do look into old books, sometimes the I's look like ones and sometimes they look like J's. And so
Yeah.
that it's lots of people have made the connection that, oh, it's just 1,000 years. It's like that it's deliberately deceptive and they just did this. But it is weird that sometimes they do look like that because I've seen it like where I've read the book and I've looked at the different characters and they're not consistent and I don't know why, but it is weird. And at the same time, it's like that I guess I really am pretty convinced of the Gunnar Heinsohn stuff. So it's like that I
Mm.
feel like the people who lived after the cataclysm, they really didn't know what date it was. And I think that that's like so that whether the so I don't think that you could ever look back and find correct dates that are after whatever was the time, like the original dating system. You
Mm.
know what I'm
sure.
saying? Because like it just like it, I think there's you just cannot find accurate dates. So, but it is interesting. Yeah, like obviously the year of the Lord definitely has to come from a worldwide acceptance of Jesus for
Yeah.
sure.
A start date. Yeah.
For
Hmm.
sure. Okay, so let's read a little bit of this to the audience. So, although the exact year is unknown, Genghis Khan was born sometime around, and again, we don't know about these dates, how accurate they are. He was born sometime around 1150 AD in the vicinity of Azareth, became king of the Tartarians, and began overspreading the earth like a flood on a Christian conquest by the 1200s. If nothing else, this has given me like the vibes of the White Horseman, who was given a crown and a bow, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. A lot of people associate that with the Antichrist.
Hmm.
I don't see how they're drawing that conclusion because nowhere does it say that first horseman is the devil or the Antichrist. In fact, Jesus is the one that rides on a white horse, and Jesus has the crown because he's the king of all kings, right?
Hmm.
But anyway, there's some more connections between Genghis and the first horseman later on. But okay, so sometime after the migration of the Tartars to this place, about the year of our Lord 1162, they proceeded to elect theirself a king, a man who was named Genghis Khan. So, one of my followers sent all this to me. His original name, Genghis. Do you know what that means? It means blacksmith or of iron. Again, another reference to Jesus, what he ruled with, a rod of iron. I don't know, it's crazy. One approved integrity, great wisdom, commanding eloquence, and immense for his valor. He began his reign with so much justice and moderation that he was beloved and revered as their deity rather than their sovereign. So here we have a Christian empire.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting too. But
Yeah, and guys, on all of this stuff, you could see where it has a reference. You can actually click on that and you can look at everything. He's just picking out just these little screenshots, but he has done a great job to source everything that he's getting it from. And so you guys can just click on that source and it'll blow up whatever you want. You know, it's got a lot of old maps. You can look at all the old maps and everything like that too. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And so, just so everybody's not confused about the name thing, Genghis Khan, his name wasn't always Genghis. The Lord changed his name, like he often did with his, disciples, his prophets. So his original name meant a blacksmith or of iron, and then they changed it, and then it started meaning King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So let's see. Scroll down to this big article because there's one in here where Genghis receives a vision from a white horseman in white armor. And that is super interesting. It sounds a lot like the book of Revelation. Is that it? Yeah, that's it right there.
Yep.
Can you read that one, JT?
Yeah, I can read it. It happened that a poor old man, being a smith, saw a vision in his sleep, namely a man armed all in white armor and mounted on a white horse, which calling him by his name and said unto him, Genghis, it is the will and pleasure of the immortal God that thou be Lord and ruler over the nations of Magali. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And that be delivered from dominion of their neighbors, under which they have long, is it remained? Oh, that's like weird, right? Okay, and they shall rule over their neighbors and receive tribute of them in whom they formerly paid tribute. Genghis, hearing the word of God, was replenished in exceeding joy and made publicly known the vision which he had seen. But the rulers and commanders would not give credit to the vision, but rather despise and mock the old man. But the night following, they themselves saw the vision of the horseman armed in white, who commanded them from the immortal God that they should be obedient to Genghis and cause all to obey his command. Whereupon all that said, the chieftains and governors of the 7 nations of the Tartarians, calling the people together, made them yield obedience and reverence to Genghis. Then afterwards, placing a chair for him in the midst of them and spreading a black felt carpet on the ground, they set him thereon, and then they 7 chieftain rulers, lifting him up, did a place in his throne on the chair and of state, and the great triumph and acclamation, calling him Can, their first emperor. Is it Khan? Is that
Khan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means king or king of kings.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's in, I mean, that does that not like remind you of Revelation with the white horseman and all that? Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some interesting language the way it's used. Of course, the way, could it also be that God spoke to this man and he kind of put him in charge of this area too? That didn't necessarily have to be Jesus, but it doesn't mean that this thing wasn't provided by God. Obviously, we know that nobody has authority unless God gives it to him anyways. So
yeah,
pretty interesting either way.
Yeah,
Y-
so yeah, if nothing else, that could just be, you know what I mean? That could be what the author is saying, that through that, like through people like Genghis and all these other, I'm sure there were other kings, many other kings that received instructions from the Lord during the 1,000 years. Is like maybe he's saying that this was just part of the second coming, was the Lord ruling through people like this, because Jesus said that we would be kings and priests unto the Lord during the millennial reign, and
Right.
obviously this is one of the kings of the Lord, because in that vision he acknowledges that there's an immortal God and it's not a him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It talks
Yeah.
about the immortal God. There's
Yeah. Right.
I think it's just sort of weird, just even all these books about Tartaria and the Tartars. I don't know. It's kind of just a strange thing that we're just never told about these people existing.
It
yeah.
is.
It's really weird. Yeah, and they're on all these old maps. I don't know. To me, it's like I've never heard a good explanation why that is the way it is.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy is I was listening to, which this is kind of on topic in a sense with the Tartaria, but there was this video where this person was talking to one of those AI things, which I'm not a fan of that. I don't do that, but I I heard him asking like if you basically wanted to control people, like what exactly would you do, what would you do? And in that thing they were talking about like destroying the history and making people believe in lies. And then it actually even mentioned Tartaria in that AI response. I'll have to find that video and send it to you guys.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's not how I use ChatGPT. I literally just ask it kind of like history questions type thing, like
Yeah.
trying to get like it's. I see it as a more advanced Google. I know some people see it as sorcery. I'm not. I don't agree with that position. I mean, I agree that like that when you're asking it like when you're treating it like it's some kind of oracle, then I
Right.
think that that's different versus like if you type the same question into Google, like is that okay versus a more advanced Google is what it is. It has a memory that like a regular Google does not, and I think that's the big difference. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know you can find you can get sources from it. But yeah, that's interesting that if it is more candid. I'm always skeptical of though when people talk to Chat GBT in that kind of way, and it puts out these very
But it
cryptic
wasn't
answers.
Chat GPT. It was
Or
like
no, or
thought. It
no,
was Thoth or
oh
something.
yeah, or whatever. Well, that's one's called literally after
I know.
like a god
I know. That's
in
the one
ancient
that they
Egypt.
were talking to. It's crazy.
Well, I just kind of wonder too. It's like the could we even verify if that's real? You know, like they could obviously make a voice say whatever they wanted to if they're setting up a video too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's all right for tomfoolery if you wanted to make a outrageous TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else is interesting? This very next article, the Tartaria 229 there, from the most famous kingdoms of 1608. Um, I can't hardly read it on the screen, but I can read it better right here. Most part of all the nations of the Tartars, except Varchini, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Yeah, Varchini, who are um who are
Who are not
dang
subject.
some of the, yeah, it's written in old English. That's how you know this is from actual old books.
Yeah, it's written in the same exact way as like the Geneva
The
Bible would
Geneva
be
The
Bible. Yeah,
written.
that's
Geneva
what I was.
Bible.
Those words were tripping me up. It was just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Me too. Yeah, so yeah, I keep forgetting in the Geneva style, the F's are actually S's,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Okay. Who are not subject to the Great Khan. They fight on, wait a minute, who are not subject to the Great Cham. Is that right? Yeah, it says Cham.
Yeah.
Anyway, they fight on horseback, and their weapons of choice are the bow and the arrow. And that's how the Battle of Armageddon, was described as fought on horseback. And what I would like for people, I'd like to challenge. This is a little bit of a thought, a thought challenge here. Do you think that we could summon a 200 million man army on horseback today? Because apparently the Battle of Armageddon was fought like 200 million horsemen, right?
Mm.
Is that, have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I mean, I've heard that. Whether or not, I've never did the math to check and see if that pans out. But so back then I could totally see, because that was their means of travel was horseback.
Hmm.
But today I was doing some research. I was thinking, let's say the whole world got hit with the EMP, and we were suddenly slung back to the Stone Age. Could we even find 200 million horses? Guess how many horses are in the entire world right now? Only
58
six,
million.
only 60 million horses, roughly.
I was
Count.
literally just looking it.
Wow.
I was just looking it up. Yeah.
Dang, you're fast. And that's counting the
He's
wild ones,
tracking.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
he's tracking.
I was listening. Yeah, like yeah. Well, I remember that
So
girl Kay Podgy. She was debunking the little season, and she's saying that that could not have happened because there was only about a blah 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 about 100 million people back in the first century. But yeah, she didn't do her horse math.
she didn't do the
She
horse
didn't look that
math.
up. There's not enough horses.
There's not. There's
Dude,
not.
that's insane to think about. Like, just like you wouldn't think about something like that, you know? It's
Well,
crazy.
yeah. I don't know what made. I guess that when I was reading this article, about the horseback and the battles and everything, I was like, could we even get our hands on 200 million horses today? Because hardly anybody knows how to ride a horse, much less owns one. And then you look it up, and 10 million of those 60 million are wild horses, right? JT, ain't that what it
Oh,
said?
I didn't even look at the details.
Yeah,
But I think I think the thing about that specifically where that verse comes from, I think that's coming out of Revelation chapter 9. I think that's a spiritual thing. That the 200 million person army or being army, I think that because I mean, if you really think about it, an army with 200 million people is beyond anything anybody can even imagine anyways, because like there's
Hmm.
never been anything like that in a war. So I think it must be akin to something because it's preceded by having talks about the bottomless pit being opened up and then all the crazy
yeah.
entities that come out. So I think it's a spiritual thing, but yeah, it is interesting when you have futurists putting it in modern terms. It doesn't make a lot of sense the way they try to wrestle with that.
Yeah, it literally doesn't make any sense how they try to wrestle with that and put it in, in today's times. Just how we don't know how dense the population was in the first century. For all we know, there could have been more people on this earth back then than we have now,
Yeah, I could buy that.
you know? So but my thing is, regardless, who is more likely to summon a large army of horsemen, you know what I mean? Them in the first century or us, in 2025, where the big portion of this country rides around in Ubers and taxis.
Yeah.
They don't even own their own car, much less have a horse or a way to get a horse.
Yeah, maybe when all
Yeah.
the Tesla charging stations get knocked out, then everyone's going to go back to horseback, and that will
Yeah.
bring about the end of days.
Yeah, and I agree with you, JT, on that because I actually kind of did a video on that 200 million army number, if you want to call it an army, but it is those beings that are coming out of the bottomless pit, and I had speculated in that video that what if a lot of those same beings are the ones that are gonna be a part of surrounding the camp of the saints and stuff like that because it talks about the numbers as the sand of the sea, right? So it's going to be a lot of people, but I don't think it's going to be like each individual sand grain that you would see on the sea. It just in biblical reference, it just means like a large number. There's going to
Yeah,
be a lot of them because it even says that Israel, even though that they shall even though they shall be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. So it even uses that to the children of Israel as being the sands of the sea. And so like you could just use that same terminology. It's just like it's going to be a lot of people or a lot
Yeah.
of something, the number of the sand of the sea.
Yeah, like when the Bible gets very literal, it gets literal. I think that there is like poetic, prophetic language because I was actually just reading that. I must have been probably in Deuteronomy or maybe it was in the beginning of Joshua because it literally says that basically that promise to Abraham about the stars in the sky. I think it mentions that was fulfilled, and so now he's giving you this land like in the book of Deuteronomy, or it was either Deuteronomy or Joshua that actually said that though you be of the sands of the sea or the stars of the sky, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's what that's talking about, but like even the horseman argument, because there's actually futurists that believe that as well. I'm guessing, they would interpret it like maybe in a literal sense. So that would even debunk that part of that too, if they believed it was a literal for a 200 million horse army.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
You want to scroll down? Or are we good here?
One sec. Yeah, I was going to read one little part from that just because I don't know what pops into your mind when I'm reading this here. Being indeed, I'm skipping halfway down that article in the middle where it's
Okay.
underlined in red. That's where I'm going to start.
The underline in
They,
red, the second one.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, right before that it says they shoot strongly and surely out of their bows. Indeed, being indeed so skillful in the art of shooting that they commonly pierce all kind of armor, and if they happen to be rooted, yet they fly in troops and bands so well ordered that it is very dangerous to follow or pursue them because they shoot their arrows backwards in their flight, wounding and killing ofttimes both men and horses that pursue them.
Hmm.
So I don't know what I every time when I'm reading this, I keep thinking about that passage in Revelation where he was given a bow and a crown. The bow and arrow was the Tartars' weapon of choice, right?
Hmm.
And obviously they conquered all of Asia. That says that because of them, Christianity spread across the earth like a flood. I don't know why my mind keeps going there. It may not even be related,
You know what?
but
You know what? All that bow and arrow stuff and flying and shooting backwards. It reminds me of like that video game Zelda with Link and all those
oh, dude,
like the little. It's like an angel creature that shoots bow and arrows and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the way I read it there. It doesn't even seem like it's humanly possible.
oh, dude, this is crazy. Okay, so the next little verse, I must have skipped over this. The next little paragraph down there from what I just read.
The Holy Ghost one.
Yeah, the Holy Ghost one. So look at the underlined passage at the bottom. Then they set the crown upon his head. What did I just? He was given a bow. Then he was given a crown.
Hmm.
That's crazy. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't believe that the white horseman in Revelation is the Antichrist anymore. See, they made us think Genghis Khan was an evil Asian dude. You know what I mean? That
Hmm.
just went around slaughtering people. But really, he was very revered, and it says that he ruled with a lot of integrity and morality, and he was just highly esteemed, highly revered, and highly respected by everyone.
On your point about the Antichrist, though, many people have said the white horseman is the Antichrist, but I mean, the word Antichrist never even shows up in the book of Revelation. And
Mm-mm.
No.
also, why? So, what are the other horsemen? Like, why is the white horseman the only person who's a person?
Right.
Like I
Right.
think that's kind of interesting because it's like nobody says, "Well, who do you think the red horseman is?" I've always wondered who like the. I think obviously it's going back. It's like a throwback to the book of what Zechariah, and then you have these spirits. I mean, I don't think that they're human at all. I think that they're all spirits. It's like a spirit goes into the world and then this happens. So like it's like
Yeah.
you're letting loose these kind of entities in there, and maybe that's pushing the men to do certain things.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think
That's
that
kind of
yeah,
that's what I think
That
too.
yeah.
It's not an actual like physical thing, but once it's kind of like the trumpet and vial judgments,
yeah,
it's like that. But like once this is released or whatever, it says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was
Yeah.
given unto him a great sword. So wouldn't that just be like wars, rumors of
yeah. It's
wars
Yeah.
yeah,
and
Yeah.
It's
stuff
like
like
this.
that?
It's kind of
Yeah.
like almost like the idea that in like the Greek mythology. So who's your god of war? It'd be like Mars, or Ares is
Mhm.
release. And
Hmm.
so what does Ares do? Does he start the war? Does he start the wars? Well, he obviously puts this spirit in the men, and then the men start doing things that it's kind of out of character. I think that the truth is the way we were taught Revelation is obviously wrong
Oh
from the
yeah.
very beginning. So it starts off wrong, because I think that the horsemen are somewhere inside all the other judgments. It's like it's not like this four things happen and then the other things happen. It's like they're all
Hmm.
happening at the same time. Even it makes sense that like I've always tried to think about like the book of Revelation. It's like, so when the seals are getting broken, it's like you have a scroll. And so if you break one seal, you can kind of see part of the scroll, but you're still not seeing it in order. So
Hmm.
they're only reading parts of the scroll. And like you can't read it chronologically until it's all the way opened. And
Yeah.
so the way that's why, and of course, John is getting different views from earth, he's getting views from heaven, he's getting different perspectives. So that's why like there's repeating events. But because
Yeah,
obviously when you read the seals, it's like, yeah, when you get to the sixth seal, Jesus returns. But that's
exactly.
obviously he doesn't return at the beginning of the book of Revelation. He returns
Well,
at
that's what they
the end.
say is basically like the rapture, you know.
They try to say
Well,
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
But
God's judgment too. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like that all this stuff starts to is all happens because like in Revelation 19 and Revelation 6, the same thing happens is that
Yeah,
Jesus
because
comes back.
yeah, because in Revelation 6 there at the end, it's even saying that they're asking for the rocks to fall on them at that point too.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
like that's
it's
the end. That's kind of
yeah,
the end right there.
yeah, it says
mhm.
in verse 16, it says, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Not a one.
Yeah.
Not a one.
Yeah. So this next passage here, I guess this guy, I don't know why I forgot about that. I don't know if he's trying to make the same connection my mind kept going to, which we got to remember, Genghis was visited in visions by a white horseman. So yeah, like kind of JT, what you're saying, it is a spiritual thing, right?
Hmm.
This white horseman was a spirit, and he was telling Genghis what to do so that he could go on these conquests and help spread Christianity, which was obviously the will of God. Um, and I'm reminded that he told the Pharisees plainly. They asked him when the kingdom would come, and he said, "It will not come with observation. You won't be able to say, 'Lo, here it is,' or 'Lo, over there it is,' for the kingdom is within you." So maybe I don't know. Maybe Jesus ruled from heaven, from New Jerusalem, from heaven, and
I think it's honestly,
you know,
the more I thought about it, it's kind of maybe similar to the way it was in like basically in the Old
in the Old
Testament.
Testament, he
Yeah.
ruled from the clouds.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yes.
did he? Did he not?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'm
That's
thinking,
my take on it, because I think it's really interesting, and I know that Gunnar Heinsohn put Constantine in the first century, but even if he wasn't in the first century, I think it's really interesting that the way that Constantine was converted was that he saw a sign in heaven, which was some kind of a double cross, like a cross
yeah,
with like the two posts,
yep,
and what he was told in this vision was conquer in the name of this.
Hmm.
So I
with
mean,
this
it's like
sign, conquer.
so
And
yeah,
this, yeah,
exactly. So I think that's really interesting, and I know that some people who we've been doing research in this, it's like I think that looking at like the early Roman Christians and painting them all with the modern Catholic Church, I think that's wrong.
Oh yeah.
Like, because we at some point, like, they converted from their pagan ways, and some people would say they still kept pagan traditions. Whether they did or they didn't, it's like that people here trying to be Christians, it's kind of like pointing to Joel Osteen and saying Christians are doing it wrong today. If that's what your example of like what you thought Christianity was, it's like, yeah, there's obviously lots of people doing it wrong, but the fact that somehow Christianity got spread during this time, it must have been a good thing. It actually does make sense to me that, like, that to me makes more sense that that's what Jesus meant when he said he's going to rule with the rod of iron. And that's why I said you could even use mainstream
dude, that's
yeah,
crazy. I just
that's
had
what I'm
like I had a little moment there just thinking about that.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, I think that
You had ambassadors here on this earth to basically just keep everyone straight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's
people
what,
like
to me,
Genghis.
I would say that that's what ruling with the rod of iron would be like, because you could even use, let's just say we believe the mainstream history totally. I could basically prove this view through that, and the world would say that when the European Christians came over here, they did wicked things to the native populations. The native populations were sacrificing themselves to demons.
They're heathen
on top of pyramids and doing all kinds of satanic things. So if the God of the Old Testament, who's, Jesus, God, they're the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if they sent a people that was not perfect over there to judge them, that to me sounds like how God rules with the rod of iron. It's not like, he used the Israelites. We know that they weren't good.
Yeah.
And even that's exactly what Moses tells them before they go into the promised land. It's like, don't ever think that you're getting this land because you're so good. It's because the people here are so awful. So it's not because you're good. It's because they're worse. And then eventually they were worse, and God used Nebuchadnezzar to judge them.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of just like that promised land analogy too, JT, when we were talking about it in that Matthew 24 stream, that like oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
You're good.
Where was I going with it?
That Matthew 20, something about Matthew 24.
No, but before that.
Oh.
Talking about judging pagan nations with less corrupt versions of themselves or whatever.
Yeah, well, basically, I guess my concept is that God isn't afraid of war. You know what I mean? Even in the Old Testament,
he's a man of war. He's a man of war, right?
He's a man of war. Oh, it was. Oh, I just had it. But anyways, yeah, he's not afraid of that. The promised land. That's what it was. The promised land analogy. Like, he's getting them to that place, right? And he's not afraid of who he needs to clear out of the way in order to get that done. So he's not afraid of that stuff, is my point.
Right. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it makes sense. Actually, I think that this is probably the view that makes the most sense to me at this point, without any kind of proof that like a physical Jesus was ruling. Like, I think that there would be a lot of proof of that. Even if, again, even being in the little season, I do believe that some of the skeptics of this community would be correct when they'd say that there would probably be more about something like that. Now, obviously, we do know there's the iconography in the churches of the saints and Jesus himself. But typically, it looks like Jesus is reigning from some kind of heavenly place, because he's usually depicted as being up above.
In the clouds, too, yeah.
Yeah, he's usually depicted as being somewhere in a heavenly place. So, yeah, that's how God influences people today. And to me, I think that if the kingdom is within, he's using us to go do the work of the kingdom. So it probably was like that during even the 1,000 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what made the 1,000-year reign so
I think you could stop sharing that now, JT, unless you wanted to go through some.
Oh, do you got any more to go read through?
Yeah, actually this next one, because it kind of relates to what we're saying right here.
Okay, sorry about that.
Well, right there. Go back down. About that. Yeah, right there. Perfect. So let me just read this. So what we're saying is that we believe most likely Jesus reigned from the heavens, from the clouds, from heaven, the heavens above. That he wasn't physically here on this earth himself, but he was using people, he was ruling and reigning through people like us, sending, whether he was sending angels, visions, whatever. And it does seem like that would be the most case given the lack of physical evidence that we have of Jesus being on this earth for 1,000 years. But what made the 1,000-year reign so significant, right? We keep with what we haven't mentioned yet. Satan was bound during that
Right.
time. So there was no opposition against the Holy Ghost, against the kingdom, against the spread of Christianity. It just spread like a flood. It would, right? The devil's not
Right.
here to resist it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's kind of this is another vision that Genghis got. After that, Genghis Khan had subdued all the kingdoms and the countries on that side of the mountain of Belgium. He saw another vision in the night. For the self same horseman armed in white armor appeared unto him again, saying, Genghis Khan, it is the pleasure of the immortal God that thou pass over the mountain of Belgium and direct thy course westwards, where thou shalt possess kingdoms and countries and subdue many nations. So
That's
I think
insane.
that's insane.
Yeah,
So
the Belgian mountain, like where? I mean, is that like in Belgium? I mean,
Maybe.
because that's interesting because
Belgian.
I
Maybe I'm
guess if you
pronouncing that wrong.
No, it's Belgian.
no,
Okay.
I think you were right. I think that well, I mean, if you look up Genghis Khan, he was Mongolian. It was like the Mongolian Empire. But I think that maybe that's the psyop? Is
Yeah.
that they call it Mongolia versus Tartaria,
Tartaria.
and that's really where the kind of the real disconnect is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting though is like that. I guess the thing is like we're really not taught anything about Genghis Khan. So
Mhm.
like the idea of like what kind of belief, it actually is funny if you look him up, it says he promoted religious tolerance or something like that, which is really weird. It's like really weird to say that. Like, yeah, because he's like that. Does that really seem kind of contrary to kind of what we're told about him? Because he kind of like what we're taught about the Mongols is they were like savages. That's weird.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that. So why would he care about like religious acceptance and he had like a coexist sticker on his horse.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good point, JT. So this next one, this is where it gets into talking about the lost 10 tribes.
Okay.
Just down here under where obviously this guy was maybe making some connections with the White Horseman, and my mind kept going there too. But anyway, let's go down here. Was Genghis Khan a Christian? There you go.
Okay, now this is what we need to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. How many of you guys have heard of Timbuktu or Timbuktu or Tinduck?
I've heard the expression, yeah, Timbuktu, but I
Timbuktu.
had no idea what that meant.
No, what is it?
Me either. Well, this references it. Okay, so it says the lost 10 tribes were sent to Azareth, an area also called Tinduck on many maps. I just found that, kind of weird. Tinduck on many maps on this Christianography map of Christianity. What this map is a spread showing kind of, I guess, where Christianity started in this area and how it spread everywhere. Tinduck was kind of what I understand it to be like the headquarters for the Tartarian spread of Christianity. Okay, that's how I kind of understood this.
Okay.
But so from 1636, the only place with many Christians is the Azareth Tinduck area where the Tartarians reside. As you get further and further away from Tinduck, there are less and less Christians, almost as if Christianity spread from the area of Tinduck to the west and the south. There's that Tinduck too.
Yeah, that's weird. That's really weird. Yeah,
Maybe
another thing, because I know that if you guys saw the thumbnail, I made it.
Hey, JT, you could click on that map and it'll blow it up.
Oh, really?
There you
Okay,
go,
let's do that.
Yeah, just click on it again.
That's
There
as
should
big.
be a plus sign.
Let me. I can probably make it bigger through here. Whoops.
Hit the plus sign you see on the top left.
That's getting. Oh, let's see. Oh,
You see the plus sign?
Oh, there you go. Hey,
There
that's
you
pretty
go.
clear.
Yeah, 10
So,
duck.
10
Okay.
yeah. So that's weird, but I was saying like that. If you guys had seen the thumbnail that I made, I showed the Great Wall, and I was kind of depicting like what you might see as Moscow. Like me and Ricardo were actually talking about how they have like very unusual architecture in Russia with the onion domes. I think the only thing that might be comparable is what we're told about is like, kind of medieval mosques kind of have maybe like an onion dome kind of a thing. But yeah, what's interesting is like, I think it seems really clear to me now, like without knowing too much more than this, is the Great Wall of China. If you guys aren't already aware, it faces like basically where you would shoot arrows from. It faces into China, and like the high side of the wall is on the Chinese side. So what we're taught, what we've always been told, is like the Mongols were like these savages, and so they literally had to build a wall in order to keep them out.
Yeah.
But it seems obvious now that
it's the other way.
It's the other way around.
The wall was kept to keep the people in the China area out. And what was really weird is when we had Paul on the podcast one day, he was mentioning like there's this weird loop in the wall. There's like this circular section where it's almost like something was meant to be kept in to this place. And of course, China was like the land of the dragon. I think that's probably something that Marco Polo wrote about. That there's weird stuff there. So it kind of makes sense that in places in India and China, it does seem like where it has some of the older remnants of like really satanic traditions.
So you think that they had to set up the headquarters closest to that place to keep it at bay even more so? You think? Is that what you're kind of going at?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that you had like you set the wall up over a smaller section of your empire because the empire outside of that's really big.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense. It really makes no sense for a smaller country to build this wall that's gigantic and it supposedly took like over 1,000 years to build.
There you are, like, that 1,000 years
No one would ever do that. Like, it makes no sense. If you could build a wall like that, what you could afford to do is go kill all the people who are trying to get in.
Absolutely.
That's a more economical. It makes more sense to do that. So it's like it's a way more powerful nation builds this wall to keep a lesser nation at bay. I mean, I mean, if we did it, it would be more like akin to the United States building a wall to keep, immigrants out from the South.
Yeah.
Not the other way, right?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they teach that? Obviously they used to teach it was the Great Wall of China, but like you said, you can look at it and tell it was built to keep China out because the high part where you would stand behind it with an arrow, right, is facing China. Why would China, if there's China soldiers on this wall, why would they leave their backside exposed? You know what I mean? To the opposite country. Why would they leave that part exposed? It makes no sense.
Well, I think the more obvious thing is the fact that, like, if you look on the one side, it's real easy. It would be real easy for the people on the quote unquote Mongolian side to get up the wall because the hill goes up the wall.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side is real steep where like you could not climb it. So like wherever the windows face, it's more obvious that like, it would be real hard to keep people out when you actually have a hill right next to their side of the wall. They would actually have a better position later because they'd be able to get up and shoot at the people in your place.
Exactly.
Hey, JT, can you try resharing your screen real quick? I don't think it's showing up on the live, and I would like for them to see that map.
It's not. Okay.
I pulled it up on my phone, and it didn't.
Let me see. Okay,
didn't look like it was. I don't know. Hopefully, it was sharing it the whole time because we didn't even notice until just now.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys seeing the map? Because we're definitely seeing the map.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we're
do.
definitely seeing.
Okay, they
Is
see the
there not a
map.
way for
Okay, they
us to
see it.
see the chat?
What's that?
Is there not a way for us to see the chat from in here?
Well, you can see the chat if you open it up on your web browser, and then you can pop it out. But obviously, you should
Okay.
probably
Yeah, that
turn
would be.
off the volume at least, because otherwise you'll get some echo.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. It'd be too much.
Yeah, we got
back and
nearly
forth.
900 people watching. This is a great crowd,
Wow, that's
as it's
awesome.
always been. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, sweet.
There's okay, so there's some other maps if you want to show them. The pretty cool maps on that article.
Yeah. Let me.
Old world maps.
I think just scroll that one, JT.
You
You can.
want-
There's another one of Tin Duck.
Which one you want to see? Tin Duck. Let's see a bigger one. Did they talk about the Great Wall at all in this?
Kingdom.
Look,
Okay,
there's
Tin Duck.
there's Gog on this map.
I know, I
Yeah.
saw that.
Oh yeah, and look what it says right here: Tin Duck, the kingdom in which Christians ruled in the year 1290. That could have been 290. I mean, we don't know when that was.
Bro,
really,
look at
but-
the other side of that map. What is that place called?
America.
America.
What the world?
What?
What year is this?
It's supposed to be 1290.
Well, that
But if-
doesn't make a lot of sense from what
No.
we're told. That's really weird.
Look at this the smaller box down below the big red one, the little red one. That
Yeah,
looks
Mongol.
like that looks like a J before the two or an I.
yeah. There's Magog right there.
There's Magog.
Oh, what?
There's Magog and Gog. So I'm
Right.
telling y'all, there's something to this article that it just grabbed my attention. Like nothing has grabbed my attention this strongly in a long time.
Mhm.
I don't. There's something here guys can just kind of take from it what the Lord wants you to take from it. But this is a good article. We'll link it or something so you guys can
Yeah.
read through it.
Well, I think what's interesting, you always see on these old maps, you see all these castles. And
That's
things
what I was
like
gonna
that.
say, yeah.
That's a ton of castles up in this place. This definitely,
Man.
you definitely. What makes me always curious is like the Tolkien mythologies, the Tolkien mythos of like the Lord of the Rings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This definitely looks like one of those maps. And yeah, I do kind of always wonder like where like did Tolkien got these stories from? If he didn't get it directly from some demon, like they're so intricate and like just detailed
Yeah.
about these different peoples, these different places, and there's so much depth to these stories. It's
Yeah.
insane that anybody could come up with that. And I do wonder, like, I don't know, just like the way that the mountains are shown on there, I just get vibes of like the Lord of the Rings. It's like that's what it shows, like them traveling
sure.
around Middle Earth.
That's what I was gonna say. Middle Earth.
Middle
Yeah.
Earth. Yeah.
That is crazy that on the right it says America over there.
Mm.
What's that word under America? Can you make that out?
I don't like I said they're getting a little fancy with the font.
I
They're
know.
losing. It's like is that a A or is it a IA? Oh gosh,
I don't know. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Why did we quit writing like that?
because nobody could realize what the F anyone was trying to say.
I bet back then they knew what it said, but you know what I mean? It'd be like trying to read some of this chicken scratch people write today.
Hey,
They were thinking like we won't have to explain this. Everyone will know this in 1,000 years.
Hey,
Yeah.
go to
They'll never be able to
out of
hide
that
this.
real quick, JT.
Yeah.
Go what?
Go out of that real quick. There's another map. Go down, and it's with Tin Duck and America. Go down, maybe.
There's
Yeah,
one
that's
with
interesting 'cause-
Tartaria.
Well, that's interesting. Even on this map, obviously, yeah, like where they're depicting what seems to be America, right? That's, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's Alaska.
That's
right?
Alaska. Yeah, they're
So, like,
showing.
that's pretty accurate, huh?
I think they're trying to show. I remember reading this now. There's something about that boat right there. How someone got from America to Tartaria back then. And Azareth. Azareth is in the middle of is in between Tartaria and Alaska.
It's kind of weird.
Argon, formerly a Christian kingdom under Prester John of Asia, established by Saint Thomas the Apostle, Didymus Thomas.
What?
Yeah.
I
So
remember
that
hearing a long time ago that Thomas went to Asia.
Mm.
this map is
I wonder if this is where this idea comes from.
probably so. This map is probably a lot older than what we're told here. What's the rest of it say? So that Romans would not correspond to the church and were subject to Prester John of Africa, and before he was defeated by the Goths, it was known as Cru Ramu. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Azareth. Here, the 10 tribes retreated and changed from the Tartar or Tartar area to
Scythia.
Scythia. Since then, they are called Goths or Gothans, confirming God's highest glory. And here lies the splendid kingdom of Cathal. See, man, that's interesting. All these kingdoms and stuff, and
Yeah.
that's from 4 Esdras, chapter 13.
Oh, that's interesting because that's what Brian and I were just reading through a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that's like there's a lot of just interesting things. I'll just say this: I'm not so much for that lost tribe stuff because I just don't think that's really how like the way that people kind of view it. It's like this whole tribe just decided to get up and move. What really happened was that these people rebelled against God, and then they were taken into captivity. And typically during I think specifically in when the Assyrians took people into captivity, they spread everyone out, and then they intermix with them. So that tribe lost their identity altogether because they were not homogenous. And I mean, that's the only thing. That's the main reason God kept them all together, is so they would be homogenous. And so once they were taken out of that land, it wouldn't be that way. And so even after the Babylonian captivity, and you had the decree from Cyrus the Great for them to come back into the land, all the tribes that were faithful to God went back into Judea. And so so you had all 12 tribes that were willing to go back, lived around Jerusalem. And I think that's why there was this angst between them and Samaria, which used to be a part of, them and the rest of Israel. So when people say lost tribes, they make it sound like, that there's these people who are like the tribe of Dan just hanging out somewhere, just like Beetlejuice. What are you guys doing?
No,
what are you guys doing over
yeah.
here in Tartaria? We're just hanging around. What we're doing over here?
Dude, this over here to the left is super interesting too. It's talking about Tabor.
Okay.
Kind of shrink at just a little.
Okay, let me do that.
Whoa, perfect. Right there. So Tabor or Tibur, center of the area of the Tartars, where once the holy books got lost. Yet they were united under one king. What? United under one king who in 1540 first reached France, and King Francis, and later at the initiative of Charles V, was burned at the stake for his heresy because he had secretly endeavored to convert Christian kings to the Jewish religion, about which he had spoken with Charles V.
What?
Dang. And what's that below it? Here they
we
mastered.
had our first Zionist burned at the stake.
Wait, yeah. When were we taught about the printing press? When did that get invented? Supposedly,
It had to be right around then. Right? When was the Geneva Bible?
1560.
Okay, so that's
Wasn't it?
1540.
Yeah.
okay. Well, that
Something like
says,
that.
yeah, tangent. Here they mastered the art of printing 1,000 years ago. That doesn't line up with when we're taught the printing press was invented. That says
Right.
600 AD.
That's pretty interesting. That's interesting.
What
I mean,
if
so all these old books. I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's really people have to go check some of the stuff out. To obviously, this is confirmed, but it is nice that
Yeah,
this guy obviously gave all the references and stuff like this. I think I can't get enough of these old maps though.
I
I
love these
To
know.
old
be honest,
maps,
I
dude.
love the old
Yeah,
maps.
let's look at the next one.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, so get up. There was one that had 10
You want to
duck
read
in.
anything on here?
Let's
Let me
see.
know. Stop me if you see anything.
Okay.
The Emperor, Lord of the Tartarians,
Yeah, this is a good one.
or Khan,
This
was
is about.
baptized in the Christian faith and establishes peace between. Yeah, we
Yeah,
should probably
read
read
that one,
that. That's
JT.
interesting.
Yeah, read that one.
Okay, it says, first, myself being emperor and lord of the Tartarians will be baptized in the faith which the Christians hold to at this day, wishing and advising all my subjects to do like the like. You're not intending to force any thereunto. To your second, we will and agree that there will be a perpetual peace between the Tartarians and Christians, touching the
What?
matter of the Holy Land. The Holy Land. Okay.
Yeah.
We say that if we could conveniently, we would willingly go hither in person for the reverence we bear to our Lord Jesus Christ. But
Wow.
because
Wow.
we have many occasions of importance to stay us in these parts, we will take order with our brother Haloon for due accomplishment of that service in all points as behooveth for the freeing of the city of Jerusalem, that's got to be Jerusalem,
Oh, it
and all
has
the
to
Jerusalem,
Holy
yeah.
be.
Land in the hands of the pagans
Out
and
of the
restoring it
hands.
to the Christian.
That's
Out of the
I
hands of
forgot.
the
Almost forgot
pagans.
about
Oh,
that
that's
clip.
what I say.
Um,
Yeah,
I don't think you said out, but he was
Uh,
delivering him out of it.
Out of the
Yeah.
hands
yeah.
of the pagans and restoring it to the Christians.
Yeah.
So yeah, what that's basically saying is Genghis Khan went to Jerusalem to free it from the pagans and to restore it back to the Christians, to give it to the Christians. And
Hmm.
that
That's
makes me think of a passage in Revelation. I wish I could remember specific chapters and like the verse numbers and stuff better. But doesn't it talk about the holy city being trodden underfoot by the Gentiles for a
Right.
certain period of time, and then it was to be
This
taken away
wasn't it for
from them?
42 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, 42 months.
Yeah.
Or is that when he said a time, and half a time?
No,
It's
I
one of
th-
the two. You'll find it.
I'll
I
look it
know
up.
you'll find it quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were taught that Genghis Khan was like this savage Mongol. I don't remember being taught he was a Christian at all.
I just looked
But
it up. They say he wasn't, but I don't know that they wouldn't say something that was untrue.
of course they would. But these old books from the 1500s obviously confirm he was a Christian.
Well, it is interesting that I know that one of the things that Brian and I were talking about on the last episode of the Ancient Angels podcast was about the fact that like in the Chinese and Japanese characters, they're all like biblically oriented. Like all the like you can kind of see like what their words mean and like the way their characters are drawn up. And I think that that does not fit with the mainstream narrative. So maybe this would be a reason to deny it. That like if these ancient languages like literally look like they have roots all the way back to the days of Noah, and like that understanding like the story of the Garden of Eden, the book of Genesis and all that stuff. It makes sense to me that yeah, that if this stuff was true, they wouldn't want us to know that it was true.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Hey, so I found that verse. It's Revelation 11:2, and it was 42 months. It says, "But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 40 and 2 months."
Wow. That's interesting because according to
Well,
this, part of one of his conquests was to restore Jerusalem back to the Christians, basically taking it from the pagans who are Gentiles in a lot of, in a lot of aspects.
Dude,
well,
this would
I
make the
think I
best movie in the world right now.
well,
Dude, would it
I think
not?
this what
Dude,
this
this
is
is so epic.
well, I think what
Epic.
this is kind of like. I mean, if anything, it's talking about the Crusades.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
real
that's what I mean. I think that's
Crusades,
what it's
though.
saying because it's saying like that the people who control Jerusalem now are not Christian. So that obviously before this is not the Romans being sent to destroy Jerusalem. This is later.
Mm,
It makes sense
Yeah.
that again, like the people in that region, they still would have been some rebellious people trying to go back in, and maybe that's what happened because Christianity spread throughout, and obviously that Jesus tells the woman at the well that there's coming a day when you can worship God in spirit and in truth. So you don't need no one needs to go into Jerusalem to worship there. And if you really
yeah.
think
Right.
about what happened there, based on what we know of history and what God says is going to happen there, it was not a great place to be. It was a place that was made desolate. So maybe by the time it started to, I don't know, be somewhat livable,
Again.
the only
Yeah.
people there were probably people who were very far from God.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Pagans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pagans. That's interesting.
Kabbalists.
Kabbalist. So it also talks about making, a perpetual peace between Christians and Tartarians, which the Tartarians are Christians. But maybe at some point they weren't. But so my thing is, where are the Tartarians today? We've found way too much evidence to dismiss them as some myth. We know the Tartarian Empire was in fact real, and there's
Hmm.
still remnants. Their architecture is still all over the place. So I wonder where do you guys think they went, and where did Gog and Magog go?
Hmm.
That's what baffles me. Like, did they just I
Take
don't
it off
know.
the map or what?
Did they just take it off the map? And after some sort of reset, those people didn't even know they were Tartarian or Gogian or Magogians. I
I think
mean,
it's like the same way that I was saying like about the tribes, like that when they got conquered, they did not have a national identity anymore. So they either got hauled off into captivity. The ones that stayed were oppressed. Maybe they were taken as plunder to enemies. The Rufs, whoever moved into Russia, and they are the ones, maybe the Khazars, people like that. They took over different parts of it. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, they lost their national identity. I was even thinking about, like in the Bible, how it says that, when the Ammonites are kind of double cross the Israelites, and
mhm.
God says, "Go take them out and wipe their name out under heaven." And so, like, we're
Wow.
going to remove every record of these people. I think that obviously happened a lot. That these people, like, it's like they never existed
Mm,
because we're
Yeah,
wiping out all the record they ever existed. Now, luckily for us, there is a lot of still record of it, but I mean, it does seem like it's just a very obvious thing that it is covered up in this kind of way. And maybe yeah, like maybe people are just saying like the Scythians and the people like they're people are just given different names for it. Even it's funny, like even like the Greeks, it's like that Greece was a place, but not everybody in there called themselves Greek. I mean, they were all Greeks, but like Alexander the Great was a Macedonian.
right.
So you have different names for it. Even like in the land of Canaan, that there was how many kings did the Israelites conquer? And there wasn't like 30 different kings.
Oh
It
yeah, it was
seems,
a bunch.
yeah, it seems like a very small place as far as like from what we can perceive, like that Israel is about the same size as New Jersey. And then you have it divided up into like 30 different. No, yeah, it's the same
Yeah.
size. It's like you
yeah.
imagine like a place like New Jersey being divided up into 30 different kingdoms.
It didn't
It's like
make sense to me.
it's kind of like a world that we just can't even wrap our minds around,
Yeah.
like what it all means.
Seriously, yeah. So yeah, that's wild. I
It's
can't
just
picture that.
lost to us, because it
Yeah.
just like
Again,
it's hard to even fathom because this is completely new stuff.
but yeah, so when you put it like that, JT, again, my mind goes to thinking the only country that I can imagine so many kings, right? And kingdoms, America. Like if Utah was Judah or Judah, you'd have a king there, the king of Judah. And then look at all the 50 states. We have a governor in each state. What if there were
Yeah.
kings in each state? Not what we call governors today, but they would have been kings back then. I don't know, man.
No, I
It's
think it's
wild.
different. I think you could make a good case just based on all the state capitol buildings. It's like, yeah, that could a king have lived there?
Mm,
I
Mm,
mean,
yeah.
there was something going on there. I think that's the idea. It's like that even in the Bible, sometimes it's like a prince. But a prince is of a principality, right? It's a place
right.
that a prince rules over. And to me, it's like the way that the Bible uses a prince, it's like that's the same thing as a king. It's like it's really not a different position. It's not like a prince is under a king. It's like the prince rules this place. And so maybe I wonder how much of it is just a lost in translation thing of how we perceive kings versus how kings in all actuality were they more like governors, or maybe
Right.
a king had a kingdom,
Right.
and then obviously an emperor had something different. But I read a book about the Roman Empire once, and emperor was not a grander title than a king. The reason
Right.
why the Romans had emperors, at least is what we're told. Again, this could be just all BS, but it was that because the Romans had a republic,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't supposed to have like a king who did everything. So it was almost like that when Julius Caesar supposedly took the title of dictator, it was not actually a bad thing. It was actually a lesser. It was like it had I guess the connotation was that it wasn't as they weren't being lorded over by a king. A dictator dictated things that they did, like as the government did, I guess. And then
Yeah.
an emperor was not as grand a title as a king, because you can't have a king if you still have like a republic and a different kind of branch of government. And it was like that Caesar Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, he had all these different titles over all these things, which basically gave him full authority. But he didn't want anyone to know that because he didn't want people to think that he was a king. Kind of interesting, but we view it as an emperor is way bigger than a king,
Yeah, we do.
based
Yeah.
on probably looking backwards, like hindsight. But it didn't used to be like that.
Yeah. So this is interesting too, where it mentions Pope Innocent the Fourth, Bishop of Rome, sends friars to the court of the great Khan. They pleaded for peace in the name of Christianity. So I was under the impression back then the Pope was it. He was the final authority. He was the most powerful person pretty much on earth back then.
Hmm.
But according to this, he was pleading with the great Khan for peace. He was afraid of Genghis Khan, obviously. Um, but
Hmm.
here's what's I sent you, Ricardo. Can you zoom in on these dates here? As you
Um,
can see, it keeps talking about in the year of our Lord. But those
this is yeah, 1228, 1241, 1242,
that one, look how far the one is in
or
front of the
12
two.
12 here.
That looks like okay. Any of them. Zoom in on 1162. You see how far that first one
Yeah,
is
see, here's what I
offset?
was saying though. Here's what I was saying though. Like, yeah, but here's what I'm saying. Like when I was saying that, it does just seem like they write their ones funny, because what year is this? Because that eye looks like this looks like an eye as well. You know what I'm saying?
When yeah,
Like in
well,
the year 1212. Because if that's an eye too, but that's used as a one for sure,
when you
right?
zoom in, you can clearly if you can see if you can zoom in, you'll see what I'm talking about. They look different. They're written. See, look at the 1241. You can't. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, look, yeah. I think the 1241. I think it looks.
It's space though. That
It,
it
It's
seems like.
spaced and it's kind of slanted. That almost looks like a J or an I, and it's different than the one behind the four. And what's up? I don't know. Why the extra space? You know what I mean? And they are calling
It's
this the
it's
year of our
close.
Lord.
It's closer to the 4 than it is to the 2. I'll admit that.
yeah, but if you look at the characters all around the whole
Hmm.
written, it's not like it was like somebody used a typewriter. It's like
Right.
lots of the words, lots of the letters look janky.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like look at the
the
word great. It looks like it's written really funny looking.
Yeah, it's in like
Even
italics.
Chinggis looks like it's kind of written in like a. It just
right.
looks funny the way it's written.
Hmm.
It's like italicized.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
there's something off about it. That's why I said, but it's like you have 1212 and 1241. I mean, I can see that the letters kind of look slightly different, but it almost is look like they just use eyes for ones.
I
That's just the
don't
way
see
they
why
do.
they would. Yeah, but why would they do that? Why would they use an eye for a one?
I don't know.
Like in
Why
you
do we use
see.
an O for a 0?
Well,
Yeah, good point.
an O is more circle and a 0 is more oval, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, yeah, correct when you type it, but when you
So it
write it,
says,
how much different does it look?
Not
so it
much.
says this. Let's
Not
read
much.
it. Let's see if any of the context will help us here. So, um, after certain years, they had elected among them king called Genghis. That's what his name was to start with, till God told him to change it to Genghis, I believe. Called Genghis, whom for the greatness of his glory and victories they added the surname of Great. This Genghis, departing from his own territories in the year of our Lord, that's either I 162 or 1162, but it says the year of our Lord. So I'm thinking this was during the
Or
millennial
it's only
reign.
62 because it's got 2 eyes.
That's what I said.
It could be the year 62. Yeah. In the year
we
1212, they
skip the
drove.
ones altogether, so the next year is 22.
Hey,
Since
hey, what if it's kind of like
Huh.
I don't know.
This says they spoiled Russia. They invaded and spoiled Russia.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I learned about let's just say I learned about some people from the Khazarian Empire,
Uh huh.
and they got purged out, which I was told by the Roofs, who would be the modern day Russians. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and those people I believe came from kind of the Nordic lands, and when the people from the Khazarian Empire went to all around Europe, and they spread around there, and they lost their homeland. So if you guys have looked into that, you guys can look into that yourself, and you
Yeah.
get the references.
Yeah. Man, that's what I'm saying. This article is just, it's got a lot in it, man. It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to read and kind of, speculate
Digest.
on, digest. It's wild. So it's like 2 over. It mentions Jehovah. What's that one about? Down at the bottom.
Or
No,
is
in
that
that in
Yeah, just
click.
scroll down a
same
little.
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. Hit the arrow. Hit the arrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Arrow.
The
To the
scroll
right.
arrow. No, to the right.
The swipe arrow to the right.
There you
There
go.
you go. The next one. Oh, that's talking about gospels and evangelists. So, this one about
Oh, look at
Celeste.
this one in celestial Jerusalem. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, read that one,
Wow.
JT.
It says, in this celestial Jerusalem, the word of formerly communicated by God to Moses is found. This word is Jehovah, lost on the earth, but which he invites us to find in great
Hmm.
Tartary, a country still governed even in our days by the patriarchs, but which he means allegorically to say that this people most nearly approach to the primitive condition of perfection of innocence. Huh. Wait, what
Wow.
is it? Let me read that again. This
Yeah.
people most nearly approach to the primitive condition of the perfection of innocence.
Wow. I don't know exactly what that is saying, but it kind of sounds like well, I mean, just what it says, they went kind of back to a primitive state where they were nearly perfect. Because wasn't, Adam and Eve, they don't get more primitive than that, and they were made perfect.
Well, if
But
this was in the millennial reign and they were just worshiping the Lord that way and they knew fully where they were in the timeline and everything, how close could you have been to God? And how, like you're saying, the innocence. So that's what the world tries to do, is corrupt our innocence and to make
Yeah.
us perverted.
Yeah,
It's
maybe it's like a
interesting.
child. Maybe it's like a childlike state of like faith in God
Yeah.
before you knew what was wrong and right, and you just had a
Yeah.
childlike want to please your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it says they found that state in the Great Tartarian. And it's interesting. It talks about the celestial Jerusalem.
Yeah, all the
Mm-hmm.
way back to formally communicated by God to Moses. So that is I find that really interesting that
Hmm.
heavenly Jerusalem does show up in places in the Bible, but it's very sparse.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that, like, I think that long ago I had the misconception that New Jerusalem was like a new creation in the book of Revelation, but it's clearly not. It just descends. And then you see
Right.
it show up in other places in the Bible. But so when was it created? I guess it was always there.
Yeah.
And
Just
maybe
like
that's
God.
yeah, maybe that was the whole thing, was that there was always this celestial Jerusalem, and there was a earthly representative in the same way that there was the tabernacle before the temple. There was
Mm,
always a temple in heaven.
yeah.
And so that
Yeah. Uh-oh, JT got froze.
I know.
Oh no. Of
Uh,
course, when there he is. He's moving again.
Hey.
You,
did I freeze or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you froze.
Okay.
You're good now. What was he saying before that?
Oh,
Sh-
What
what did
Shane.
was
I
it?
say? Or what did
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, because
I
you
was just
What
froze
were
saying
you
up.
like
saying?
I was just saying like yeah, that all the things on earth that God had Moses build, and eventually the Israelites probably built, was that they were representations of things that were in heaven. So if there was a temple in
Mm-hmm.
heaven, where was it? It was in heavenly Jerusalem. So there was even the city, down to the city, was that's what God showed Moses, was things that were in heaven, and that's why he built them. They built them on earth.
Yeah, and I think
Mm,
that's a lot of this architecture too. And I had this concept of, and I know people hear this term and it sounds like it's like a trigger, the as above, so below. But I think that that concept that they got that from, like a lot of them are trying to replicate what is in heaven. You know what I'm saying? Because that was their first
Ooh,
estate.
you know what? That
mm,
is, you know what's really interesting is that like going back to the book of Exodus, and if you think about it, like that, so God gave very specific. I mean, almost like to the. It's difficult to read some of the Old Testament books because there's so much detail about how to build things.
Mm,
I mean, when you start to hear all the details in the tabernacle and stuff, that's tough for me to read. But if you think about it, like, I don't believe that angels built these buildings. I don't think that the saints built these buildings. But what if they got very specific instructions from God how to build these things?
yeah.
And
yeah.
it even says, I think it is in I forgot, Beelzebub. I can't remember his name. And that God puts his spirit in this man who's um like talented in all the crafts of anything being built. You know what I'm talking about? So he's like, so Moses gets these revelations, and then God puts his spirit in this man to build all the things that he wants built. So, I mean, in that same way, like, why couldn't that happen during this time? And I think that for sure that it did. I think that that makes sense to me. That how did men do it? God told them how to do it, and then he put his spirit in certain men to be able to do it.
Mm,
Hmm. Yeah.
And also, yeah, I mean, so did that mean they didn't have tools? Of course they had tools. So they
of
must have
course.
they still had ways to do it. And maybe they taught them how to make all the tools to build it too.
And they had technology probably.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Star
Yeah.
very
Force and
interesting.
all that stuff. All the thing we were even talking about that earlier today. Ricardo and I were talking
Yeah.
about the Star Force. We have to maybe do like a detailed dig into that, because I think that's like the
Yeah, you're talking about the terraforming.
yeah, I think that that's one of these things that John Levi talks about a lot, that I think it's overlooked, is because we're staring up at a building, but sometimes you see like these cities, like in New York City, Manhattan, And basically any major city around the world that has ports, there is so much that they would have had to do to the ground and right at the edge of the water to be able to do that. That's what people are rightfully so talk about. Like we talk about the Statue of Liberty in this community, about like the representation of potentially like Apollo or the devil himself being represented through that. But really interesting, it's the base is a star fort, and even Ellis Island itself doesn't look like a natural island. It looks like it was made. And so you think about like if that was made in that certain time period, that's really, really advanced. It makes no sense. And that's just one example of many all around the country, from the canals that are everywhere, and just just the way that the ports we have. That would take so much time and expertise to do that stuff.
Oh yeah. I couldn't even begin to imagine how much time that and expertise that took to build some of those. Because some of them are on islands out in the middle of the ocean, aren't they? Those
Well,
star forts.
that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
there's so many of these buildings. Like you just go look at some of them, and the buildings go up all the way to the water. Like, so if you think about like based on these people getting over there on their wooden ships and they find an island, well, I imagine it would have some kind of sandy beach. But so you
Yeah.
couldn't really build, like so normal people would not be able to build unless you had some kind of expertise. But they have these kind of like these bulkheads and everything that go straight down into the water. They must have to use so much concrete to get
Wow.
that,
I didn't even
to
think of that.
like
Yeah.
to get so you had something. Because you imagine if it was a normal place, like if you had to build the house there, if you built it right at the edge of the water,
That'd be a
it would sink.
nightmare.
It would sink.
Yeah, that'd be a nightmare.
It would sink.
Oh yeah.
It would obviously erosion would be a big problem, but you don't ever hear them talking about those kind of problems in our infrastructure because somebody else built that stuff and it'll last forever. It's kind of like the idea of like what somebody was even saying, like some kind of Roman concrete actually gets harder. It gets solid under the water. It's some
Yeah.
kind of some kind of process it goes through where like actually the salt water makes it actually get harder.
Wow.
Yeah, I
The
mean, like I
same
said, these people are super advanced.
That's insane.
the same with certain types of wood under salt water, because the minerals and everything, it will actually petrify super fast. And like, these wooden beams become like concrete beams
Right.
quickly
Hmm.
underwater. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that we have to do a deep dive into that. I think that would be a good one. Just to, we got to show all the pictures to kind of see what people are talking about. Like, I think so many of these things, even like where we go down, not real far from you, David, like the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Yeah.
That all these kind of like barrier island places, like it seems like that's, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that would that have really held up over thousands of years without being wiped off the map by all the storms that came through there.
You wouldn't think so, because there's been some doozies come through there.
Well, you see
So,
what they have to do now. It's like they have to fight to save them. So it's
yeah.
like if people weren't there to try to protect their homes, those places would be gone,
Yeah.
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So but we're told nobody was doing that for forever until we got here.
That's
So what
crazy.
if somebody else actually built those barrier islands, put them there?
That's
That
interesting.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. It actually makes sense given what we know about the cathedrals and all
Mm-hmm.
these old world structures. They certainly had the knowledge to build something like that back then that would last, a very long time.
Oh yeah, and to
Um,
tie it in, what I found really interesting. So in John Levi's book, I think it's Old World Evidence. If you guys haven't not checked that book out, it's really interesting. It focuses mostly on San Francisco, but
hmm,
there's a section talking about I guess it's I think it was John White, I believe, was one of the first British guys to come down here and found a colony, and that was the Roanoke Island colony, the Lost Colony. So Jamestown
Okay.
up the road from me is the first supposedly English settlement. But they had a one that was earlier, I think from the early 1500s, was down in Roanoke Island, and that's the one that where John White went back to Great Britain supposedly to get supplies. He didn't come back for 3 years though, which is weird. Yeah, thanks, buddy. You get supplies. You come back for 3 years, but when he gets back, they're gone.
Kind of like the astronauts on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe he went up to space for a minute.
Went up to space.
But yeah, so he goes. When he comes back, they're gone. But the interesting part about that story was that in John Levi's book, he mentions that John White did these very detailed maps of that area that are like still good today, like really good how the cartography that they worked out. And anyways, on one of these old maps, there was a patch over this certain kind of fork in the river. There's like a river that forks out, and there's a patch right over between where it forks. And I guess they use some kind of, I don't know if it's called LiDAR, if it's on a map, if it's that shallow, but they found out what was under the patch, and it was a star fort.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So you think about that. This is like before Jamestown. There was a map made of this place, and there was a star fort there. So we know that those people that became lost did not build a star fort. So that star fort was already here. So who built the star fort? And that's
the ultimate question.
That's the $1 million question, because
probably the Tartarians.
It makes sense that all these, definitely Genghis Khan.
Khan. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, did you have anything, Shane, you wanted to touch on? We're getting a little up there in time. If you have anything else you'd like to add.
I mean, no, I mean, we could come back and revisit some of this stuff, in another episode. I'm like you, it's almost 10 o'clock here. So, I hate to, I mean, the only thing, okay, this is it. So I've always wondered why did they go from being called Israelites and Hebrews, and where did the Jews come from? Why, you know what I mean? Why
you're going to try to get us in trouble on the very end of this podcast?
Oh, that's right.
No, I'm just kidding. No, that's an interesting question, because I think they say the first time the word Jew comes up in the Bible is in the book of Esther, right?
Yeah.
And it's about that's.
This article tells you why.
Oh, really? What does it say?
I mean, kind of, and it's not far from where we just were, but it's, I'll just read it real quick. This is from the Apocalypse revealed by Emmanuel Swedenborg in 1766.
Okay.
Of the 12 tribes of Israel, 2 of the tribes, I was wrong a while ago. It's Judah and Benjamin. 2 of the tribes, Judah and Benjamin, united into a single tribe, whom then called themselves Jews. And get this, and declared that Jesus Christ was a false prophet. And the other 10 tribes went northwest into Tartaria and became Christians. The Tartarians accepted Jesus Christ and became a Christian nation who fought to restore Jerusalem back to the Christians. So,
I don't know about that one. I think that's malarkey right there.
Well, the Jews we got today, they do reject Jesus.
Well, no, but I think that's the thing. Is like that. The term, I guess, again, it's like it's a modern word. I've heard other people say that it's a translation that we have now, but what they might have been a proper pronunciation, they would have been Judahites, because they would have been from Judah.
Yeah.
And but it is, I do think it's really interesting that word Jew comes up not much in the Old Testament.
Not at all, does it?
Well, like I said, it's in the book of Esther.
Okay.
It comes up.
I'll check it out. It's a lot in the New Testament for sure.
Yeah, well, obviously it's all over the New Testament, but I think that's
a transliteration.
Well, but I think that, again, like that if you pay attention, and when there's the second Exodus, when they go out of captivity,
Babylon.
yeah, it's like all the 12 tribes are told to go back and rebuild the temple, to go back into that area.
Mhm.
So that's when that's when your tribes get mixed together, right? And so that's where like the lost tribes come into it, because like Paul is in Jerusalem, but he's of the tribe of Benjamin. He's not in the tribe of Judah. I don't know. I've tried to look it up at one point to see if you could find out what the other disciples were, what tribes they were, but it doesn't say. At the end of the day, like that, when people do get it, I think even today they get it twisted because it's about belief. So the ones who believed, they weren't of this certain tribe. They were children of Abraham. They were true Israel.
Yeah.
And what is true Israel? It's like God only knows in the 144,000 who are the individual tribes. That's always been kind of like a mystery to me, but God knows.
Yeah.
And maybe there was only 144,000, which is not a lot. 12,000 from each tribe.
Right.
That's not a lot.
No, so
I kind of believe that was being kind of literal, but I may be wrong, but it's a very specific number from the 12 specific
no,
tribes.
I think that probably was literal, but I think was it in the book of Galatians when it says that basically those who believe are the true Israel of God.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's only the book of Revelation gets into the real specifics of 12,000 from this tribe and this tribe.
Right.
I have no reason to believe it's not literal. But then somebody mentions a great multitude. So there is this very specific number, and that's probably the remnant that was saved. The remnant that believed before the end, they were saved. But then you had this innumerable multitude, and that was everyone else.
Yeah.
Who believed.
And you know what's sad about that is it should have been the other way around. They were God, you know what I mean? They were God's chosen people, fought with them and for them for 4,000 years up until that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 4,000 years. And then offer all of them, except a measly 12,000 from each tribe. Everyone else turned their back on him, rejected his only son, rejected their only Messiah. And here, the great multitude that you can't even number is from all the other nations who used to be pagans, right? And
well, that's what it says. I think when Brian was reading through 4 Ezra's, it's really interesting because it was basically like that he's getting this prophecy, Ezra is, and obviously he's grieved by it because it's the same way that Paul is. It's like that he can't help but be sad for his kinsmen who don't believe. But it's like the people who see are going to reject it. But the people who never see, and that's why I think that's what Jesus says, that blessed are you who've seen and believe, but more blessed are you those who haven't seen and believe. And so you really think about like how supernatural move of the Holy Spirit and God it is that the people who don't see any of this, they have no connection to Moses, and they believe it just based on faith. And I think that's exactly what the kingdom is. Is like because without a sovereign, real, active God, I think that's what people really have lost in, like whether the little season is true or not. It's like that people just take for granted that everyone just became Christians at some point in this world. I know not literally everyone, but
but just about.
Yeah, just about. It's just it's like literally it's dated everything, and people don't think that as like, well, when are we going to get the millennial kingdom happening? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like that they really just can only see things through fleshly eyes. Like, well, when did this happen? And you're like, what about when like the emperor of Rome said, go conquer in the name of like basically Jesus, like in this name?
Yeah.
Like that is a bigger deal than people ever give credit for, because you said because the previous history before that was these people, they were like literally dragged out of Egypt like dragged because they wish they could go back right away.
Right.
And they were seeing all the miracles and they were still rejecting it, like
Yeah.
just
Crazy.
step by step. And so like it
They
went
were
from that, it went
murmurers.
from that to people who believe without ever seeing any of it.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
miracle.
amazing.
That's a
That's
It
miracle.
is.
yeah, that's the miracle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says without faith, it is impossible to please God too.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's
impossible.
basically, you know, faith is not just belief either. It's action. Like like it says, faith without works is dead, and not to be hearers of the word only, but doers of the word. You know, I
Mhm.
think that's in Hebrews chapter 11 when it's talking about, you know, that's a faith chapter, and it says like by faith Abraham did this, like he had an action because of his belief in God. And I think
Mm.
that's ultimately what true real faith is. Not only that you just believe in him, but that you believe on him,
You
and
show
you
it. Yeah.
trust in him. Yes.
Yeah, I like it. I
Yeah.
think Connor, who brought it up, said it the last time we did a chat, was just that, yeah, if you think faith, think more like loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that, I think
Yeah.
that's probably the proper way that we can kind of understand what faith is that you're loyal to someone. And
Yeah.
so when
Faithful.
you're loyal to somebody, like that is an action. That it's
Right.
sometimes
Well
sometimes
said.
it's inaction and something that would wrong them, but it's also action and something you would do when you're loyal to someone. And I think that
Absolutely.
that's why like people do they kind of bastardize faith and they kind of combine it with belief. It's like, well, I believe, and that's what
That's
faith
not.
is. But yeah, but faith is more than faith is the action.
Yeah.
It can be the
Yeah.
action or it could be inaction. But yeah, I think loyalty, it makes more sense because people know what it is to be faithful in a marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
True.
that's basically if we're the bride of Christ, well then yeah, then you'll act a certain way if you're faithful to
Yes.
Yeah.
to Jesus.
It's like with what Ricardo was saying. James said, "Show me your faith without your works, and I'll show you my faith by my works."
Yeah, I love that. I love
Right.
that. Yeah.
I
Show me your
love
faith
that.
apart from your works, and I'll show you my
Yeah.
faith by my works. I
Yeah.
love
The
that.
two, yeah, the two cannot be separated, and the fact that people are even trying to separate them shows you where their heart is. You know what I mean? Their heart's in the world because they want to live, wicked and go strip clubs every weekend, and God only knows what. And then Sunday morning, as long as they go to church and pretend like they believe in Jesus, they're going to make it to heaven. And I'm not saying they're not,
Yeah.
but it's you can't divide faith and works. They go hand in hand. Just like
Yeah.
Jesus said, I mean, whoever abides in him brings forth much fruit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you're not bringing forth fruit, it's because you're not abiding in him.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen. Amen to that.
And
Amen.
we know what he said happens to those branches that aren't bringing forth fruit.
Yeah, they're
They
good for
get
nothing except for kindling, basically.
Yep.
kindling.
Kindling.
That's a simple way to put it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been a great discussion. Do you have anything you'd like to close off with, JT?
No, that's it. Yeah, obviously, I want to end it by. Well, you guys can close this out because I'll close out the whole thing. But yeah, no, that was awesome. Yeah, I really thought that was interesting. I think that it gives us another rabbit hole to go down because I don't know what's putting me off from looking more into Tartaria because I do think that that's interesting to look into that because so much of us have just written it off as this a psyop to take away from something grander. But I do, like I said, I always point to my map up here where it's on there. Something significant about it. And I think the fact that it has been written out of our history books or ripped out of our history books does make me think that there's something that they're hiding. So yeah, I need to dig more in and look more into it. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Interesting stuff, David.
Yeah, no problem. Just a few weeks ago, me and Ricardo, and maybe that was a podcast we had with you. No, who was that? Yeah, shoot, I can't remember the guest we had, but we had actually came to that conclusion that we thought Tartaria was just a psyop to distract people from the
That was
Millennial
with Paul.
Kingdom.
That was with
That was with
Paul.
Paul. But I think we had it wrong. It's
Yeah.
part of the kingdom. It's, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
that's why it was hidden.
Yeah, I think the real problem is that it's it was a word used without a lot of understanding of the greater
Concept.
deception. So the fact that you say this is a Tartarian building, you're just saying, that's why I always call it just an old world.
Mhm.
It was a time before this. So saying everything's Grand Tartary, I think that's inaccurate. But obviously there was a Grand Tartary, took up a big part of Asia. So I mean, it was very significant. But yeah, but I do think that people probably have used it to try to subvert the truth by saying, oh, there were the Tartarians and they were really advanced and they were this and they had this empire that was worldwide. And it's like, no, I think that's the psyop, is people trying to take the baton and lead it into a direction that leads it away from Jesus. But they're giving you a little bit of truth or they're giving a lot of truth with some leaven, some lies.
That good old truth sandwich that's wrapped in lies.
Yeah, a little arsenic in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, if you guys are good, I'm good, and we can just close off right there. And we hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll leave that information in the description. You guys can check all that out for yourself. And like we always like to say, remember to question the narrative, and God bless.
God bless everyone.
God bless.
All right, you can cut it off right there, or I'll cut it off right there. But obviously you wanted to close off on something.
Yeah, first of all, obviously this, like I said, if you guys hopped in late, what happened today was that we did a live question the narrative on my channel. This will later be posted over on Contend for the Faith channel, Ricardo's channel. But yeah, I tagged both David, Shane, and Ricardo in the title here, and I'll probably try to put a more detailed description later if we want to put any links in there. Maybe a link to that article that we're reading through. But yeah, guys, make sure you guys follow Ricardo and David Shane. Check out their podcast. Question the Narrative is on Apple and Spotify. And obviously Ricardo posts all their podcasts over there. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Obviously, I appreciate all the super chats. You guys are so good to me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'm going to get on here maybe some more next week. I'm not exactly sure what's going on this weekend, but maybe there'll be more stuff coming. I fly by the seat of my pants. I've been trying to do JT's mixtape and also a live stream, but if I can do more, I will. So anyways, this was a lot of fun. Thanks again, David and Ricardo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you, bro.
See you next time.
All right. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So I almost clicked that leave button again.
Yeah.